Hafide, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to this hearing of the Committee on Health and Veterans Affairs. The time is 8:32 in the morning. It is Thursday, July 2nd, 2026. Thank you to those joining us here in person and to those tuning in online. Today we will be hearing the following measures. Bill 308-38 COR, introduced by Ranking Member Tina Rose Muña-Barnes. It is an act to add a new subsection 121202B1, Guam Code Annotated, relative to regulating the training of clinical psychologists to allow for supervision in Guam. We will also be hearing Bill number 322-38 COR, introduced by Senator Telo Taitague. It is an act to add a new subsection 12212.2 of Article 2, Chapter 12, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, relative to expanding physician public profile disclosures to include practice capacity and professional liability information to promote informed patient decision-making. Before we get started, all hearing materials have been uploaded to the committee drive and printed copies are available if needed. Today's hearing is also being recorded and will be posted on the Guam Legislature's YouTube channel for public viewing. With that, I'd like to recognize my colleagues that are with us today. Ranking Member Tina Rose Muña-Barnes, Senator Sean Gumatautau, Senator Telo Taitague, and Senator Therese Terlaje. Before we get started, a quick reminder, senators will each have 5 minutes for questions. As for members of the public that are with us, we ask that you please speak closely into the microphone, state your name, the organization you represent before you begin your testimony. We are going to start with Bill 308. If you are here to testify on that bill, please have a seat at the table. And before accepting testimony, we will hear opening remarks from the author. Ranking Member.
Matanane, good morning, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for hearing Bill number 308-38 COR, which is an act to add a new section 121202B1 Guam Code Annotated relative to regulating the training of clinical psychologists to allow for supervision in Guam. Bill 308-38 COR, Madam Chair and colleagues, was researched and drafted with the assistance of a student intern from the New York Institute of Technology, Arkansas campus, studying medicine, and Dr. Perez. She is among a group of young health professionals seeking to address gaps in Guam's healthcare system. This bill, Madam Chair, reflects our continued efforts to create opportunities for Guam students pursuing higher education off island and to build pathways for them to return home and to serve our community. Bill 308-38 seeks to establish a clearer framework for the supervision of postdoctoral clinical psychology interns, helping expand local training opportunities and strengthen Guam's behavioral health workforce. Mental health services, Madam Chair and colleagues, and to the listening audience, remains a critical need in our island community, and this legislation aims to remove barriers that may prevent qualified psychology graduates from completing the requirements necessary for licensure and practice in Guam. Moreover, mental health is an especially important issue for our youth. Across multiple cohorts of the Guam Legislature's Public Policy Institute, students have consistently identified mental health as one of the most pressing challenges facing their generation. Young people today face increasing pressures from school and social media, as well as pressures at home with family and financial issues and the lingering effects of COVID and typhoons. Yet access to mental health professionals remain limited, And if we are serious about supporting the well-being of our youth, we must also be serious about building a stronger pipeline of qualified mental health providers here on Guam. And by creating more opportunities for supervised training and licensure on the island, Madam Chair, this bill represents a crucial step towards strengthening the workforce needed to meet those growing behavioral health needs. And I look forward, Madam Chair and colleagues, to the hearing testimony from the stakeholders and subject matter experts in the community as we work together to strengthen this bill and ensure it effectively supports both aspiring professionals, youth, and the people of Guam, especially those who want to come back home. Madam Chair, again, for giving me the opportunity to present this bill and for it to have its public hearing here this morning. Sainamasi.
Thank you, Ranking Member. We will now accept public testimony. We will begin with the chairperson of the Guam Board of Allied Health Examiners, Dr. Balahaja.
Good morning. Good morning, Senator Salas Matanane, Chair, and good morning, Tina Muña-Barnes. Good morning, Senator Gumatautau. Good morning, Therese, Terlaje. Good morning, Senator Chris Barnett, and good morning, Telo, Taitague. Honorable Senator Salas Matanane, Honorable Senator Muña-Barnes, and honorable members of the 30th Guam Legislature. It is an honor to come before you today to testify on Subject Bill 30838. I'm Dr. Mamie Balahadia, a Guam licensed clinical psychologist for the last 41 years. I was licensed in 1985. My clinical experience and services span from the Community Mental Health Center under the old Guam Memorial Hospital to the old Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse and the Guam Regional Community Health Centers, where I am today as a practitioner. I have served on the Guam Board of Allied Health Examiners representing clinical psychology from 2003 to present for 23 years. And I've been elected chairperson to serve on the board for 16 consecutive years from 2010 to present. I cannot overemphasize the role, duty, and responsibility of a licensed clinical psychologist, providing clinical supervision to psychology interns as well as pre- and postdoc residents. It is not merely to clock in the number of hours at a designated clinical setting in a hospital or clinic where the intern or residents gaining the experience, but the valuable ground for learning and what it means to be a clinician in the field of psychology. Proper clinical supervision required a formal and structured hours between the clinical supervisor and the supervisee. The clinical supervisor must demonstrate that they have the knowledge, skills, experience, and leadership skills to exercise the position of a clinical supervisor. I am happy to report to you that I have been fortunate to have several competent and effective supervisors on Guam and graduate schools in the States to shape and develop me to be the clinical psychologist I am today. And presently, I'm learning from patients who also taught me to be a better clinician. However, I must report to you today that some up-and-coming individuals who believe that once they have secured a clinical supervisor and have obtained the minimal required hours, they are ready to roll out in this community as a clinician without rules and regulations. That is why the subject bill mandates and requires the proper training of postdoctorate interns of clinical psychology under a licensing regulatory board. That is the Guam Board of Allied Health Examiners. And to ensure our future clinical psychologists are receiving the proper training and the skills necessary to be a competent and skilled clinician. May I suggest adding a provision of I under section 2(1)(b), quote, is under the immediate supervision of a licensed clinical psychologist or licensed psychiatrist or other licensed professional who is located in the same premises as a patient or client and who is ultimately responsible for the psychological services rendered. And this particular section I like to emphasize because it's already in the current law. I'm confident that members of the 38th Guam legislature see and recognize the importance of this bill, which is meant to protect the public, and will vote in favor of the bill 30838. Dankulun Juas Mase.
Thank you. Brianna?
Good morning, Senators. My name is Brianna Siblon, the Acting Administrator out of the Health Professional Licensing Office with the Department of Public Health and Social Services. I read in, for the record, for Director Ariola. Hafade Chairperson and members of the committee. Again, I'm reading on behalf, and it says my name is Therese Ariola, but I'm reading on behalf of the Director. I am the Director of the Department of Public Health and Social Services. Thank you for the opportunity to submit testimony in strong support of Bill number 308-38 COR. This legislation addresses a critical, long-standing gap in our island's healthcare infrastructure by creating a clear, board-approved framework for the local supervision and training of postdoctorate clinical psychology interns. As the former director of Guam Behavioral and Wellness Center, I have seen firsthand the deep challenges our island faces in building and maintaining a robust mental health workforce. Over 1 billion people globally live with mental health disorders, and Guam is absolutely not exempt from this reality. Clinical psychologists are essential to diagnosing and treating these complex conditions, yet we consistently struggle to recruit and retain them. The primary barrier has never been a lack of interest from local students, rather it is the structural bottleneck that occurs after they graduate. Currently, it is incredibly difficult for interns to find compliant postdoctorate training opportunities on Guam to secure the clinical hours necessary for licensure. This force exports our brightest local talent to the U.S. mainland simply because they cannot complete their training at home. Bill number 308-38 corrects this by establishing a mechanism under the Guam Board of Allied Health Examiners to approve local internship programs and define who can legally provide supervision. What I appreciate most about this bill is that it expands our training capacity without compromising the quality of care or professional standards. It models national guidelines by explicitly outlining stringent criteria for supervisors. Supervision can be provided by a licensed clinical psychologist, psychiatrist, or equivalent professional approved by the board. It permits supervisors authorized in the U.S., its territories, or vetted foreign jurisdictions with equivalent standards to participate. Any supervisor practicing within Guam must hold a valid local license, have held that license for a minimum of 3 years, and obtain explicit board approval. These guardrails ensure that our postdoctorate interns receive top-tier guidance while protecting the health, safety, and well-being of the patients they serve. At DPHSS, our overarching mission is to modernize our systems and expand access to comprehensive health care for all Guam residents. Particularly our most vulnerable populations, mental and behavioral health is an undeniable foundational pillar of public health. By providing a legal pathway to cultivate and retain homegrown clinical psychologists, Bill 308-38 complements our ongoing efforts to strengthen Guam's broader healthcare workforce infrastructure. When we give our local psychology students the ability to finish their clinical journeys right here in our community, we ensure that their skills, cultural understanding, and long-term careers remain dedicated to the people of Guam. Bill number 308-38 is a practical, safe, and urgently needed piece of legislation that removes administrative roadblocks to mental health care access. For these reasons, I urge the body to pass this measure. Sizos Masi for your time and continued commitment to improving the health and well-being of our island. Sizos Masi.
Thank you, Mrs. Blunt. Nadine?
Good morning to the distinguished panel. Chairwoman Sabrina Matanane, Senator Shango Mutato, Senator Therese Terlaje, Senator Chris Barnett, and Senator Telo Taitague. Chairwoman Sabrina Salas Matanane and members of the Health Committee and the sponsor of the bill, Senator Muña-Barnes, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Nadine T. Cepeda. I am a licensed mental health counselor, a licensed marriage and family therapist, and a licensed professional counselor, and soon to be a licensed school psychologist, and an associate member and secretary of the Guam Psychological Association, and the vice chair of the Guam Allied Health Board Examiners. The views expressed in this testimony are my own and do not necessarily reflect the official position of the Guam Allied Health Board of Examiners. But I'm just going to speak from the heart and then go back into my testimony. I have been trying and aspiring to be a clinical psychologist. It takes 6 to 7 years. I've completed 2 and I still need 4. But it demands, because as you do clinical work, it demands that you understand human behavior, and it's beyond that. It's the training. And I'm really, really strongly and passionate about our mental health. That has been my love. That's why I continue to be a champion for many people, and I serve in many boards because I believe this is a very vulnerable population. I sit in the Guam Legal Services for the last 4 years. I sat in PAMI, which is Persons in Advocacy and in Need of Services, specifically for mental health, for 8 years. I've sat in 12 years for the coalition at Guam Coalition Sexual Assault. And I continue to sit in boards and TOGI because I am not a complainer, I'm a doer. I'm a doer because I am aging out, but still there's so much work to be done in our community. And clearly the people we see walking around here, it's not by choice. It's because usually if you look at the statistics, they have a mental illness. They probably don't even know how to access that care because navigation through this very complex, comprehensive, is too difficult. So I sit and I come here to all of you to say, really, I urge the passage of this bill. And let me state why. Because, again, I'm here to express a strong support of Bill 308-38 relative to regulating the training of clinical psychologists to allow for supervision in Guam, which establishes clear, structured, and competency-based standards for clinical supervision in psychology. Clinical supervision is the cornerstone of the mental health profession. It acts as a vital gatekeeping mechanism to ensure that psychologists in training deliver safe, ethical, and effective care. Historically, supervision, in my view, suffered from a lack of standard regulation. It is often misunderstood as the passive osmotic transmission of experience rather than a distinct evidence-based professional competency. Without formal training standards, trainees can be left vulnerable to inadequate or harmful supervision, which ultimately threatens public welfare, and that is your job. We voted you in there so you can make the right choice. And not because it's election year, it's because when you care about people, you're going to continue to do what's right in the best interest of the community. This legislation addresses these critical gaps by recognizing clinical supervision as a formal practice requiring dedicated training. By standardizing the supervisory relationship, the bill accomplishes 3 vital goals. 1 is strengthening public protection. That's why I sit in the board. We look at regulation by ensuring that psychologists in training receive high quality, ethical, and competency-based supervision. Support workforce development by creating consistent standards by preparing future psychologists and strengthening Guam behavioral health workforce. Improve access to quality mental health care by fostering the development of well-trained clinicians who are equipped to meet the growing mental health needs of our community. Clinical supervision is not simply a milestone to check off for licensure. It is a primary safeguard for our most vulnerable populations. Investing in a structured, competency-based supervision model is an investment in the health and safety of our citizens. I urge this committee to pass Bill 308-38 and establish a gold standard for mental health care in Guam and our community. Our people deserve it. And I need you to realize you're here because of our people. And this is only one factor, but this one factor is huge. Because if we don't have the proper training, I got my bachelor's and master's off island. I chose to come back, and now I'm a primary caregiver for my mother. I've been trying to get my doctorate. I have to leave here, but why? And if people do go off the states, we need to have a framework and regulations to allow investment in our local people. Because our culture is so unique, they bring in a lot of expertise. Not to say that we need somebody from off island to teach us, because we have the brains and we have the skills. We just need to really harness on that and help the younger ones that are coming back and help them. And I think this bill provides that. So I urge this committee to pass Bill 308 and establish a gold standard for mental health care in Guam and our community. Thank you for your time and leadership on this critical issue. I am happy to answer any questions for the committee you may have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Nadine. Sir.
Hafaday. Good morning, senators all the way around. Good morning. I respectfully submit this testimony in support of Bill 308-38 COR, which established a framework for supervised postdoctoral training for clinical psychologists seeking licensure on Guam. My name is Dr. Edward Santos. I hold a PhD from Palo Alto University. I also did a pre-doc, APA pre-doc in the University of San Francisco, and a postdoc at Mental Health Corporation of Denver. I've worked quite a bit in Guam for the last 20 years, Department of Mental Health, the Veterans Affairs, and most recently, Guam Department of Education. I am an officer with the Guam Psychological Association. The proposed legislation addresses a critical workforce development need within Guam's behavioral health system. The island continues to face significant shortages of licensed mental health professionals while simultaneously experiencing growing demands for psychological services across healthcare, education, public safety, military, and community settings. Establishing a clear and ethical pathway for postdoctoral supervision will strengthen Guam's capacity to train, recruit, and retain qualified clinical psychologists. The American Psychological Association, or APA, ethical principles of psychologists and code of conduct strongly support the importance of competent supervision and professional training. Several ethical principles are particularly relevant to this legislation. So I'm just going to go through the principles and see how they apply. Principle A, benevolence and non-malfeasance, states that psychologists strive to benefit those with whom they work and take care of and do no harm. Effective supervision protects the public by ensuring that emergency psychologists receive appropriate guidance, consultation, and oversight before independent practice. Bill 308-38 promotes this principle by requiring supervision by qualified licensed professionals and board-approved internship programs. Principle B, fidelity and responsibility, emphasizes psychologists' responsibility to establish relationships of trust and uphold professional standards. Licensed psychologists have an ethical obligation to contribute to the development of future professionals. The bill creates a structured mechanism through which experienced clinicians can fulfill this responsibility while maintaining accountability to regulatory standards established by the Guam Board of Allied Health Examiners. Principle C, integrity, requires psychologists to promote accuracy, honesty, and truthfulness in the science, teaching, and practice of psychology. Board approval of internship programs and supervisors helps ensure that training experiences meet professional standards and accurately prepare candidates for independent practice. Principle D, justice. Recognize that all persons should have access to and benefit from the contribution of psychology. Guam's residents deserve equitable access to high-quality mental health and behavioral health services. By reducing barriers to obtaining supervised postdoctoral experience, this legislation expands opportunities for qualified trainees to complete licensure requirements and ultimately serve the people of Guam. Increasing the number of licensed psychologists on island promotes greater access to care and advances in health equity. Principle E, respect for people's rights and dignity. Emphasize the protection of individuals' welfare and the importance of competent service delivery. Well-supervised training experiences ensure that psychological services are provided by individuals who are appropriately trained, monitored, and supported, thereby safeguarding clients and communities. Furthermore, APA Ethical Standards 2.05, Delegation of Work to Others, and Ethical Standards 7.06, Assessing Student and Supervisee Performance, underscore the responsibility of supervisors to provide adequate oversight and evaluate trainees' competence. The provisions of Bill 308-38 align with these standards by establishing qualifications for supervisors and requiring board approval for training programs. Particularly commendable is the bill's requirement that supervisors hold a valid license, possess a minimum of 3 years of licensure experience, and receive board approval before providing supervision. These safeguards help ensure that supervision is delivered by experienced professionals capable of fostering clinical competence, ethical decision-making, and professional development. As Guam continues to address behavioral health challenges, including mental health disorders, substance use, trauma, suicide prevention, and integrated healthcare needs, strengthening the professional training pipeline is essential. Bill 308-38 represents a prudent and ethical investment in Guam's mental health force and aligns with nationally recognized standards for psychological education, training, and supervision. For these reasons, I respectfully urge the members of the legislation to support and pass Bill 308-38 COR. Says Yus Mahase for your consideration and commitment to advancing the behavioral health needs of the people of Guam. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Santos. Is there anyone else that would like to testify on Bill 308? If not, we will now open it up for questions. I'm starting with the author and ranking member, Senator Tina Muña-Barnes.
Situs Masi, Madam Chair. First of all, I don't have questions at this time, and I just want to thank all those appearing in the panel this morning for their testimony and literally the recommendations to strengthen this bill. And I'll yield, Madam Chair, if I may, to do it at closing, if I can. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Senator Gumatautau.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you for the panel for being with us this morning. And as I was looking at the policy, the original policy that set the kind of our direction was passed in 1982, 44 years ago, 3 years before Dr. Mimi Balahaja actually started practicing. So it should just tell you, or at least here on Guam, it should tell you how long that this has been on the books, and any modernization has taken a lot of time. And so I want to give credit to the ranking member for at least bringing it forward. You know, when I was policy director at the Judiciary of Guam, I saw firsthand the challenges of a critical workforce and its delivery on justice services. I can attest that when there's not enough services, they had a whole division to take care of this, and they still do. But when they have to go to the private sector to try to get help on court-ordered service, it has been, is, and still remains very, very challenging. And I see kind of an opening here to support not just the needs across the rest of our community, but for sure our justice system. I only have a few questions, Madam Chair, but recognizing that JBWIC is pursuing funding for a workforce residency program in the next fiscal year, how, and anyone can help me answer this, or your engagement with them, but how has the agency helped or otherwise engaging clinical psychology interns who during at least the last 3 years have found it difficult to secure opportunities to complete postdoctorate training before their licensure, something that you had mentioned in your testimony? Can anyone offer up any insight or maybe anything on this issue of the engagement of interns at this time?
Okay, so I'm going to make a comment. I was at mental health for 15 years, and I held different positions. But I think this is the first that they've had an APA, American Psychological Association Consortium, which is very difficult. It's very competitive. So when you're finishing up into your last 2 years, you're going to have to go through an APIC and then through an APA. This is the first. It is hard in many states. They don't even have it. So I'm glad that Guam is one of them. Second is, you do have to invest. They need to budget, because I'm just saying, if I finish my doctorate, and we have people who I know, who I worked with and went to get a PhD or a PsyD, are coming back. That's exactly why I think this is so important, because they can come back. They're homegrown here. Why do we need people from the States to come and tell us how to do things? But more importantly, they can then apply to come home and do their internship prior and then do a post. Most places they pay, and truthfully, it should be budgeted. I know if I was running Guam Behavioral Health, I would say, why did it take so long? I would be here advocating, saying the need is a must, because that comes with the training. And so the question would be, they're in the right direction. It should have been sooner, but it's never too late. And I urge this board, appropriations are hard. We're all fighting for money. And where is the money coming from? And what is important versus safety? It's all important. And that's why you have the hard job and difficult job to decide what should go where, how much should go where. But of course, I'm going to advocate. And then I'm just going to go back. I don't care about the accolades. I do this because personally, I'm not a complainer. I want to make a change and a difference in our community. That's why I'm so involved, because I do care about our people. And so to answer that, yes, is there a need? And that's, I think, getting that consortium up and running, that's a great, big achievement milestone. So kudos to the leadership there. And second, we do need to budget them so they could come back. I know several people who are trying to apply for an APA, and I'm hoping they can return. But I also think, not just because they don't come from an APA school, which is very difficult. If people apply at 3,000, they only take, reality in a PhD in clinical psych, they take 13 people. So you can imagine how competitive that is. And so I know some people are taking online. Unfortunately, they can't get into that. I know one person who is active in Guam Psychological Association, and she can't even get an internship, sadly, and she's born and raised here. So I think these are things that could help, and see how we can help our people that are getting the higher education, want to stay here, be committed, and have the opportunity to get the training.
You know, when I was getting my undergraduate degree in psychology, it was daunting at the time to look at the requirements, and it just like many might have gotten scared off at that time. I mean, I was able to complete, and another career helped me to where I'm at today. But at that time, I knew that it was very, very daunting and challenging, and those challenges still remain for many psychology students across, not just Guam, but across the country. Can I ask this? Outside of a licensed school psychologist, educational psychologist, clinical psychologist, and counseling psychologist, all of who are recognized as authorized supervisors in a recently enacted Public Law 38-131, establishing a comprehensive licensure framework for school psychologists. What other licensed professional could be considered by the board, and to what extent will the portability of certification by a Guam board-approved internship program be assessed?
I think there are different expertise in the field of psychology, and right now the concentration have been for many years clinical. However, when the board look at the applications for individual to obtain licensure, it's not only clinical, but looking at what are the curriculum as well as the requirement according to Guam law that they meet. In a way, after all these years, school psychology is established by this legislature by law, and the board has already implemented, and we're ready to do the certification as required by the Department of Education. Let me emphasize again that many people think, oh, a certification is enough. No, the ultimate is a license. If you have certification and you don't have a license by the board, according to the laws and rules and regulations of Guam, you cannot practice. So it doesn't matter. So the board should thrive to make sure that that different aspect of the field of psychologies are incorporated. And I can say, if I'm still on the board, that we will look into other specialty in psychology other than clinical, health, counseling, and also industrial psychology, which is really concentrating on helping businesses how to go about, make sure that they meet the requirement and expertise as well. So there are different aspects. So that is something that the Guam Psychological Association, as well as the board members, we're looking into how we can make things to be more open in people's specialty. But right now, the law is only showing clinical psych, and of course, the boards recently passed school psychology, which is really good after all these years. We don't have school psychologist title, so it's slowly coming. The board recognizes that, and we're working diligently in getting things to meet the needs of the community, as well as looking at individual going off to school in the states that they also, their specialty are being recognized by the board.
And I thank you for mentioning industrial psychology, because in 2026, we think about the kinds of things that we're seeing across industry, whether it's in construction, whether it's in the healthcare industry, whether it's in, you pick it, that the study, the research into all of it is beginning to expand. And when we looked at, I started this whole conversation with a policy that was set in 1982, that it indeed time that we look at policies to modernize, in this case, services that reach just so many parts of our community, Dr. Balahaja. And I'm sure that at some point that the board will not just look at this, but remember, just down the road, there's going to be, after this gets modernized, there's something else. And I'm hoping that there'll be an open mind to consider how we can help support, not just, again, in this case, looking to try to expand for clinical, but it's got to be a little bit broader. And I do appreciate you all for being here today and keeping an open mind in this discussion. And Madam Chair, I thank you again for the time this morning.
Thank you, Senator Gumatata. Senator Taitague.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning to my colleagues. Of course, good morning to everyone here, and especially those who are watching this public hearing on something I think it's very important. I'm glad to see we're back again, as Mimi came up, says we're back again. And I go, and that's a good thing. That means we're working toward trying to establish an area in which we lack a lot of the manpower and definitely a very important line of work for our community, their mental health. So greatly appreciate it. Always, Vanjie, a pleasure to see you. I'm not Vanjie, Nadine. I'm thinking of your sister. I'm so sorry. I just called her last week for something else on the schools. I swear, your family, thank you so much for all your hard work and dedication to the public. Your family does great things to get involved, so I greatly appreciate your family. And again, Nadine, you came before us on a school psychology. You know, we're working toward that. And but does this bill, just yes or no, does it really affect anything that we recently passed into law?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay. Did you have a chance to read Dr. Balahaja's testimony, specifically the section on her last page, on page 2, where she said, may I suggest adding a provision of I, section 2, 1B, and in quote, is under the immediate supervision of a licensed clinical psychiatrist or licensed psychiatrist or other licensed professional who is located in the same premises as the patient or client who is ultimately responsible for that area?
Yes, I did, and I agree with that. That's
Okay.
currently in our law. Just to add a little more, I think it's very critical because if something goes wrong, the supervisor is there in the premises who's able to guide them, and that's part of the training. It'll be very difficult to have somebody who's off-site. Doctors do it all the time, but they do it within the premises that they have rights to, again, admit and so forth. So I'm definitely in support of that suggestion.
Okay. When it says off-site, you know, off-premises, or located in the same premises as the patient, does this have to do with, you know, you're seeing now with new technology and telecommunications with medical opportunities to see doctors through the website online, especially doctors who are off-island, that we lack the specialized critical needs here? Does that mean that situation too as well? I'm just thinking of telemedicine.
So so I know I do telehealth even here. If a parent can't come in, we give them, I'm a therapist in the schools. And so we give them a lot of options. Either come to we go to the school, their house, our office, or if they have access to internet. Even that I think I'm pretty seasoned, and I learn from my clients. That's very difficult because you need to see an eyeball to do a mental status examination. So with supervision, currently we don't have it, and this is why I say it's very important. You could do services, but with supervision, I think it's critical. It's in person, and 2, it's because you sometimes need to look at the client. If they're seeking some guidance and consultation, you're only reporting what their symptoms to you, but more importantly, I think you need to also kind of see and check yourself if it's in person in the same premises. So it doesn't hinder like the services you're providing. I know I do telehealth, but when you're asking supervision, I think that's another issue, and I think we got to be careful with that.
So let's give an example. For instance, you know, it's for these individuals to go through a process of supervision, right? And you have a full-fledged, you know, psychologist, and then the trainee or the person who are shadowing. So let's say that full-fledged psychologist is off-island, and you have that individual that's training, or those who are right there near the client, and all 3 are in the same room, but through telemedicine. Would that stop that from happening, that scenario, because of the premises?
Let me just emphasize that how important it is for the supervisor, clinical supervisor, and the supervisee to be in the same setting. The reason why many folks, one is that clinical supervisor have a vision and on-site of what is the person doing, and they can relate immediately. But when I am, I think that the online or Zooming is okay when that supervisor already established the time. But for example, if I'm to go off island and I'm supervising Nadine because I'm at a meeting, then we talked about it. But it should not be all the time as being off island for many, many folks. For one is that now currently, for example, on Guam, if I'm the supervisor to another agency and Nadine is another agency, how is that going to be dealing with not only the communication, but also the record keeping? Because if I'm not in the same premise and I'm from another agency, there's a question of the confidentiality and then the HIPAA regulations. So that becomes a very difficult issue. But if a relationship has been established in the same premise and I have to go off island for 1 week, that's no problem about Zooming. But it should not be that I'm supervising Nadine at public health and she's at the school. Because that crosses the specialty and also agency. But a lot of people don't understand that. Okay, another thing that, since I'm on the subject, is that I'm hearing a lot of, for example, autism, providing services. I know there are off-island agencies right now providing services to our children and adolescents. If we're in this business, we know that individual with disability needs to have a direct, proximity and even touching, that sort of thing. But being in Zoom, I'm not a fan of Zooming unless we're just friends talking. But in a therapeutic relationship, it should be a more contact, more direct involvement, especially with children with disabilities. They need a lot of in front of you for them to be able to receive. Zooming, that is something that I don't recommend because that is just defying any therapeutic services providing. I don't know what's the opinion of my colleagues here, on that.
I appreciate it.
It just makes things easier. Oh, Zooming, but I don't think so. I think we need to be one-to-one. In fact, that is being written in a relationship. One-to-one, that's sort of a therapeutic way of instead of saying, but we have to chart, we have to document. If I'm here, the right thing to do, if I'm on island and my supervisor is off island, to me, record keeping needs to say also indicating I'm on island and my supervisor is off island. That's only the ethical and right thing to do, but not Zooming. I mean, we're Zooming a lot. I don't want to Zoom when you're having a meeting and I'm Zooming with you. I mean, I like to, we have the contact, the visual, and we're together, but Zooming, it's just a barrier, right?
Okay. Thank you, Mimi, for that explanation. I'm sure the human element is so important, touching and seeing. Technology, though, has come a long way, and we're actually seeing the next generation feel more comfortable online than in person. Unfortunately, that is just where things are rolling right now, and it's unfortunate to me because I think the human element of touch and looking, knowing you're there and to hold that person's hand is an element that's most needed when it comes to psychologists and trying to help an individual. So I agree with you, but I just don't want to hinder ourselves because, Guam lacks a lot of professionals in specialty areas on this island, and we need to find an avenue. If we can't get it here, then a lot of our families on this island cannot afford to get in a plane and go somewhere else. And so that's a concern, but I'm sure we'll address that. Go ahead, Mimi, you had one more thing to say.
Senators, let me just say this, is that other than establishing laws, rules, and regulation, I think that there needs to be something, a program that really attractive and entice our own people to come back to the island to serve the people.
Yeah, that was actually my next question with regards to incentives. So,
yeah. I'm a product of a student trainee. At that time, it was, I don't know, remember time, long time ago. The government of Guam, under the Department of Education, Department of Administration, in fact, it was Faye Duenas who was running the program. There were 10 individuals can apply to be intern, and the individuals would select to go to different agencies to learn whether they wanted to be in the business. I was very fortunate to be one that was selected. I'm sorry to tell you, DYA did not accept me. I went to mental health. I was rejected. That was fine. However, with some connection to the psychiatrist, I was accepted. And that's how I started my career. But I think that we need to look at how Governor Guam needs to develop a program, such as the Department of Administration, to cover that our local up-and-coming people and to return to the island. And without that kind of a program, I don't think I would be able to get into the mental health profession and substance use today. But I was very fortunate. But we don't have that kind of program nowadays, I don't think. But individual, you know, I can be, you know, going into be upcoming to be a director of, who knows, in the future, of DYA or GMH, but it is up to the individual to select where they want to go and develop, you know, and also people in the agency department are supportive of such. The idea is that you need to promote your own people to come back to serve this community and not relying on off-island to come in. And I must say to you that there are individuals that are coming on island, they think they know better than the local people, and I said that to her face. They think they know better, and they're gone. Mm-hmm. You know, we don't need off-island people to dictate to the clinicians what we're supposed to do. We know how to serve the people. And individuals off-island, they don't know the cultural aspect. And therefore, the therapeutic alliance and relationship is going to be altered because they don't understand the cultural value. Well, I know that right now, before you get a license, you have to go through education, right? A cultural, yeah. But that's more than that. The legislature or the government needs to write a program that is going to be supportive from the beginning to the top to bring people to be educated and trained in the area that they desire to be in.
Thank you.
I think with I was fortunate, I don't know.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Is there any incentives to encourage licensed professionals to be supervisors? Is there any incentives at all?
Right now, the supervisors are being selected because of their position right now in the Governor Guam system.
So nothing to incentivize them to?
But the thing is that if you, that's the reason why the board needs to approve the supervisor, because not everybody are destined to be a supervisor.
Okay.
I mean, I might be good in the field, but I might not be good in supervising other people. So that relationship, establishing a alliance between supervisor, you know, I'm good because I have good supervisor. But if I have a real terrible supervisor who doesn't know what they're doing, then I become the same thing of saying, oh, it's okay and all that. So the quality of it is very important, and the competency of a supervisor is so important. But right now, you know, it's not being talked about. So anybody who's already meet the requirement, oh, I can be a supervisor. No. Some people are not destined to be a supervisor, I'm just tell you that. Whether they, you know, I always tell people, where did you go to school? You know? And when there's complaint of patients, you know, all that, I'm looking at it, where did you guys go to school? So that's very important, supervision.
Okay, thank you. And to public health, my last question is there anything at public health? You came here to testify on behalf of the director. Does HPLO have anything to do with this, or is it just, is there anything that you need to follow through on that public health has that is required now if this bill should pass, that a responsibility of public health?
Thank you, Senator. I wouldn't say there would be any impact for the HPLO if the bill does pass.
So there's nothing that public health
not for this bill
does at all? no monitoring, no anything like that?
Monitoring, can you elaborate?
Or you know, basically these, as these progress, the individuals who are being supervised or anything that have to check in with public health or provide additional information, anything like that?
Well, if it does pass, we're going to have to create, of course, a requirement checklist, and we do all the preliminary. The vetting happens before it even goes to the board. So yes, we do all those checks and balances.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Yes.
Okay, so you will do that. And is there a timeline in this bill that requires you to do that?
I don't have an answer for that, but I could get back to you as far as timeline. But I'm right now currently working on the school psychologist requirements and the certification. So it is completed. We're just at the stage where we would have to, of course, have it heard by the board. I don't think it'll take, maybe, I would say 90 days.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to make and even the recommendation of the author of this legislation to incorporate maybe an amendment into to ensure that this is done in a timely manner and putting that in legislation so that we can make sure this bill is, again, done quickly. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Taitague. Senator Terlaje.
Thank you all for your testimony this morning. Really appreciate it, and your efforts to, expand our ability to bring in these professionals and have them practice here. So just want to clarify, Dr. Mamie, you said, only certain supervisors should be allowed, right? That you should, as a board, be able to determine whether they are good supervisors or not. And the bill says something about that they must be authorized in subsection 1B, authorized to provide such supervision in the United States, its territories, or in a foreign jurisdiction that the board determines on a case-by-case basis, maintains licensure and supervision standards substantially equivalent to those of the United States. Is this a standard that they must meet, like Dr. Nadine was talking about APA or APIC, or is this just a board, you're going to make your own standards?
The board will go through what is the best model for clinical supervision, and because it's psychology, we would follow the APA, American Psychological Association standard, which some criteria has already been said by Dr. Santos. Yes, okay. We will do that.
Thank you, Dr. Santos. And then I thank you for your recommendation for the amendment. I appreciate that, and I agree. So currently, it looks like the law requires that you have a postgraduate clinical experience, and in place of that, we want to also allow, or alternatively allow, internship experience, right, or having been gone through an internship. Should the internship also be stated to be postgraduate and clinical? Because right now it just says an approved internship program.
If I am to go obtain a clinical psych track into as a profession, then yes, I think that my internship is very important as well, because the experience of being in the facility, in the clinic, to learn to be providing service as a clinical psychologist. And I think here it emphasizing, other than me as an intern receiving services and later on also as residents as required. I mean, just because I'm an intern for 1 year, it's not enough. It requires you to have another year of supervision. So that is already been spelled out with the board rules and regulation. So that shouldn't be a problem as to, what is required. But the reason the board wants to be approval, because a lot of individuals may not be under clinical psychology, they just go, nilly-willing to select a friend to be a supervisor. And you look at it as that what quality it is. And in fact, ethics shows that if I'm related to you or if I am a friend of yours, I should not select you as my clinical supervisor. Being in this profession, it should not be easy. You learn. So you learn to be the best that you can as a psychologist.
All right, so I appreciate what you're saying about the supervisor, but my question is, it's kind of a technical question. Yeah, so this just says you just have to have a board-approved internship program. And it's not spelled out here that it has to be postgraduate or clinical internship program like it was for the postgraduate clinical experience. Do you understand? So this should be postgraduate, right? Not an internship while you were in school.
Internship is before postgraduate. I think
So it's before graduation? So is that what?
Spelled out.
So we're going to allow the internships that they do before graduation to take the place of postgraduate clinical experience?
Yes.
Do you all agree?
So, if I may, Senator Therese, so internship is prior to graduation, and then this is focusing on post, so they have to do 1 year after they graduate.
Okay, that's what I want. That's what I want it to be, right? So you all agree that that's what it should be, is post and another internship postgraduate.
Yeah, so it's internship and then post-grad. That's correct.
No, this internship that we are allowing to be supervised to
It's post.
post. Okay,
So the one, at least I'm understanding it, is that it's post.
All right,
It's
so-
after you graduate.
So on line 7 of the bill on page 2, that's what I'm proposing, is that it should say in a board-approved postgraduate and internship program, so that there's no dispute. We always have these disputes whether a prior internship program will satisfy. And I'm also asking you now, should we also put the word clinical? Does it have to be a clinical internship? Are there other types of internships? Because the postgraduate clinical experience that was previously required is very specifically clinical. So should we also add clinical there? Postgraduate and clinical internship program.
That would be more clearer in indicating exactly the different categories.
Okay.
Internship, it could be before,
Yes.
high school internship is good.
Yes.
And an internship during my undergrad years. But a postdoctoral also required a number of hours that you have to obtain, and who are the supervisors is also important. Yeah,
All right.
correct.
All right, thank you. Dr. Santos, you would?
If I may?
Yes.
So the language usually is pre-doc internship, pre-doctoral internship, and that's required for to get your degree. And then there's another part called postdoc, and it's normally, it can be APA approved. Some of them are not, but it's very supervised experience as well. So those are pre-doc, postdoc, and then it's X number of hours for the total. Sometimes they accept a student or a candidate for a pre-doc and postdoc at the same time. They'll give them that opportunity to do the 2 years.
Okay, appreciate that. So no objection to if we adding in postgraduate there and clinical as well? All right, Sijo Sumasi. And other than that, no questions, and Sijo Sumasi. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Terlaje. Senator Barnett.
Sidosmasi, Madam Chair, and good morning to the people of Guam watching on our YouTube channel, and most especially good morning to the panel, Dr. Santos, Dr. Balahadia, Dr. Sablan. Just promote you.
Kidding.
Prima Nadine, good morning, good morning. I was just in my thoughts here about how we've made so much progress in kind of whittling back the stigma with mental health issues in our society. I'm not sure if this kind of started in COVID, where we all kind of got really introspective, and nowadays it's very commonplace for people to say that they need a mental health day. And so I just want to thank you for your service in this field, And I'm very sure that you've been part of dialing back that stigma so that we can all openly talk about what we're going through in our heads. So I just wanted to first say thank you with that. It sounds like we all support the bill outside of some minor technical corrections. I did want to ask Dr. Bahagia, so in the bill it reads, an individual who has not completed 1 year postgraduate clinical experience or who cannot document such experience under the supervision of a clinical psychologist, psychiatrist, or other licensed professional deemed by the board to be substantially equivalent. I know it was brought up earlier, but just to clarify, would this include the positions that we recently grandfathered in for the school psychologists and legislation that we passed? I believe it was in the last session. So would that include the school psychologists? I know that you said the priority is the clinical psychologist, but are we looking at somewhere down the road allowing this type of internship for those who serve as the school psychologists?
It is up to, for DOE, to establish that. But I think clinical setting in the clinic and the hospital is quite different than school setting. That's the reason why we have a delineation of clinical psychologists and school. So school, in order for you to be licensed school, that also is one aspect that you need to have the required quality supervision in order for you to be licensed in the future. Yes, we grandfathered the legislature wisdom of grandfathering the individuals who are already working in the school to be a school psychologist. So that's already, work in the works. And then application, I'm kind of like pushing for individuals to submit an application. And then the board then also would look at the, the board will look at the certification because that is required by DOE, I was told. But the certification will come after licensure. So those 6 individuals at DOE currently, after they submit the application, it will go before the board to get the license. Certification is another matter. Certification is another standard additional to licensure that they're going to have to meet. So that we're already working on that to make sure that the certification is here. And in the last hearing on the school psychology, the job description already indicated by the DOE, who they, in general, job description, for everybody to look at when you apply. But the position description is exactly what you do. So if I'm a school psychologist and I may not do the same type of services like maybe Nadine, so it's going to be indicated, I think, by the management of school as to how they're going to divvy it out. But the board's responsibility to indicate what's a minimum qualification that you have to meet. Yeah. And that's being set up. So I must report to you today that certification is being worked on, but application is already established, so they can come. I urge them to put in their application so that they can go before the board. And when the application is in, that it will be in the board's agenda for approval. So that's fast track in a way, depending on the applicant. Sooner they get in, the sooner they're going to be on the board's agenda. Yeah. So I understand there's a time frame for the individuals to put in the application. So we're encouraging to move it, So I think we're thankful, actually, the community thankful for the legislature wisdom to see that establishing social psychology is so important in the school system. So that's working as well as the other aspect of things. It might be slow, but in a way, depending on the element and what it is, that I think it's moving pretty good into make sure that our individuals are properly titled and the work that they do to reflect on the title.
Thank you for that. Nadine, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Yes, I just want to thank this body who actually supported it, and truly it's helping many people. We went down to 21,000 students in enrollment, But I'm glad you bring up something, Senator Barnett, in regards to COVID did bring up the issues of what's been known in the mental health field has been an issue. But clearly we're seeing it in our schools, and when they don't come to school and they end up in the legal system, or because it's generational mental health. And you know our culture is, hey, don't say anything. But the reality is we do. We need to talk about it. And so that's part of our job in the school system. That's what school psychologists do, is they are specialized in the school mental health providers. And that's why I'm truly grateful for all this body, which was 14-1. Trust me, I had families call me. And I thank each and every one of you who supported, because it's not only benefiting us, that means more work for us, but we're okay, that's our job. It's more about helping who we can and can't help, because they do have a choice if they want services, but at least we can do some prevention and intervention. So thank you.
Thank you, Nadine. So thank you, Doc. So it kind of sounds like down the road, we could have a pipeline for internship under the established school psychologists. Okay. I guess the other question I had, and this is the term substantially equivalent, when you talk about licensure and supervision standards substantially equivalent to those of the United States, what's the metric on that, Doc? And that sounds like it's just up to the discretion of the board. So how substantially equivalent are we talking about, and how do you kind of match some of these maybe foreign qualifications and vet them against the APA regs?
Currently in the law, in the previous legislature, give the authorization to the board to evaluate the application if they are foreign graduate. It's already in the books. And there are, for example, the Philippines, Santo Tomas and the Ateneo, they're a good school. So if the individuals submit the application and we're looking at it and it's equivalent to the US standards, yes, we will accept, and the board will grant licensure to individual so they can be in the workforce. That's additional professional people that we needed on Guam. Yes.
Thank you. And then you also brought up how you're not supposed to intern under a relative or a friend because of, the obvious ethical concerns. So, with that being said, is there anything involved in the internship application process for the intern or the supervising psychologist in terms of like declaring any kind of relationship that they may have with a potential intern?
We have come across one case in which a friend, we saw that on the internet, thank God to all these things. So I don't really, look at that one. I only look at it once in a while. But it indicated that the person who's a supervisor is a friend or in the same corporation as the intern. So that is something that is not allowed. The guideline, being a friend is not, a friend is a friend, but it is not going to be in a good supervision position to supervise. If we're friends, I should not be supervising you. And the potential supervisor should know better. So the board has looked into this and then have denied. And then, of course, we have a backlash, why this, why that. Today we have a lot of individuals that kind of like back-talking. Like there's no respect. I was like, who raised you? They just wanted to do what the hell they want to do. So the rules and regulation and law really put it in place. And it is not because one board member or the board, don't like this particular thing you submitted. It's because we have to follow the law as established and the rules and regulation. And if people read, a lot of people don't read, I'm sorry to tell you, if people read, they know what they are. Instead of quarreling, instead of fighting the board, it says, why this, why that. And we have people even bring lawyers to question the board, But regardless, when the board is being in the battlefield, we will follow what is the law and rules and regulation.
Thank you, Doc. So, Dr. Santos?
If I may, just to go back on that one, the supervisors licensed, so they have ethical standards that they're going to have to follow, and especially that fidelity and responsibility to uphold the trust and the professional standards. So again, they have to follow that ethical standard to be a supervisor. So if they're going against that, they're going against their whole training anyway.
Right. Thank you for that, Dr. Santos. And so I guess where I was going with it was, do we need, are there substantial safeguards? And besides the obvious ethical declarations, but it kind of sounds like even with those in place, you still had a case where someone was trying to get in under their friend. So I'm just not sure if we need to put anything in here, or if you believe whatever's on the books already is adequate.
Senator, you know, Guam is a small place. I mean, we do something, the next day, you know, everybody in the community knows. So I think we might miss something, but later on, it's going to be established. But I think it's incumbent upon the supervisor, who should be another step ahead, to say, okay, I am not able to provide you the supervision because we are, the reason, I'm related. I'm related to your grandfather, maybe, you know, I mean, you know, I don't know. But I just think that the supervisor in a higher level than the supervisee need to really look at, is it appropriate for me to supervise that person just because I'm asked by this person's father, say, hey, my daughter needs supervision, could you please do that? No, you have the standard, you can explain why. I mean, if all of us follow the standards and you know, what is being a competent supervisor, then we have good clinicians in this community.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Dr. Santos. Thank you to the panel for your very insightful testimony. I feel like my IQ went up a few points just listening to you. And thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to ask questions.
Thank you, Senator Barnett, and thank you to the panel for coming here today. And I look forward to working with the author of this bill to ensure some of the goals and suggestions are implemented into the bill with respect to the amendment from Dr. Balahaja, as well as ensuring, like you mentioned, Nadine, that the legislation, when it becomes law, strengthens public protection, supports workforce development, and improves access to quality mental health care. Ranking Member, you may close on your bill.
Thank you. Sidus Masi, Madam Chair. And the why to this bill is literally, Madam Chair, intended to create a pathway for trainees to complete the required supervision locally, thereby strengthening Guam's mental health workforce. And as the findings had some identifying factors, you know, of course, mental health needs continue to grow both globally and locally. Clinical psychologists play that important role in diagnosing and treating the mental health disorders. And then the psychology graduates often struggle to find opportunities to obtain supervised postdoctoral clinical hours required for the licensure, and because we lacked a clearly defined statutory framework identifying who may supervise clinical psychology trainees. I bring it back to you, Madam Chair, for hearing this bill and wanting this bill to go through its process of support. And I want to give credit, more importantly, to one of our locals who want to come back home, and her name is Dr. Veronica Perez, who not only wanted to go back to school to fill in the gaps in our healthcare system as a doctor, but also to find ways to further expand the opportunities for more students to come back to Guam and to get to work. And her work as an intern in the legislature through the relationship with the New York Institute to allow her to come back home and do internship and to work closely with the policy-making body, the legislature, through our office. Her work through this bill creates that pipeline. So I again, Madam Chair, extend my sidus masis to her And I want to thank the panel for your testimony and your recommended amendments to strengthen this bill. And also, Madam Chair, I'd be remiss if I didn't include that you did get additional testimony that you'll put online, and also one that comes from Witchy Dennis Mohat, and I want to make sure that that gets included. But thank you, thank you, thank you. And it was brought up earlier too with one of my other colleagues, and Nadine, thank you so much for bringing that, because during the pandemic and something that we couldn't control, but something we did learn on the need for having you guys having to be around, and in order for us to provide those services, we need to grow upon. And this is the time, as we look at modernization, as we look at opportunities, as we look at changing times, it cannot just be shouldered by you guys here. We need to open that pipeline, and this is that recommendation, and the younger generation wanting to come back home. But in order for us to let them come back home, they have to have opportunities. And again, working closely with you guys who have the seniority here. You know, as we get older, right, we want to exchange or give the baton to our younger generation. So, Madam Chair, thank you so much for this, and I truly appreciate it. And I'm hoping that we can look at all the recommendations, see how we can get the amended version from this committee through your markup, and literally get it to the floor sooner than later. I know we have budget in the month of July, but hopefully before the end of the term that this bill would be put on the floor and get its full support. So thank you for your hard work. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ranking Member, and thank you to the panel for joining us and providing testimony on Bill 308. Thank you. We will now move on to Bill 322, introduced by Senator Telo Taitague. If there is anyone here to testify on this bill, please have a seat at the table before us. We will now begin with the author's opening remarks on her legislation. Senator Taitague.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Buenas and half a day, everyone. And thank you, Madam Chair, again for the opportunity to present Bill 322-38 COR relative to expanding physicians' public profile disclosures to include practice capacity and professional liability information. It is core that Bill 322 is about transparency, accountability, and giving patients meaningful information before they choose a medical provider. This bill is not a new policy concept. Guam law has already recognized that patients should have access to important information about physicians from whom they receive care. In 2011, the legislature enacted Public Law 31-84, the Patients Protection through Information Act, introduced by actually Senator Tina Rose Muña-Barnes, which establishes Guam's Physician Profile Disclosure Program. In 2018, the legislature further expanded the framework through Public Law 34-79, requiring the Board of Medical Examiners to establish and maintain searchable physician's profile website. Those laws were based on a simple principle. Patients are better able to make informed health decisions when they have access to accurate and meaningful information about their provider. Although those laws were enacted years ago, implementation required continued oversight and follow-through. From 2019 to 2022, the legislature continued to raise concerns and push for the physician's profile system to be implemented and intended. Today, the Guam Board of Medical Examiners Physician Profile website is a marked improvement from where it was just a few years ago. Patients now access physicians' license, specialty, license status, and other professional information online. But unfortunately, the information that was required by some of these public laws is still have yet to be placed on the website. And this has been by law. Now, Bill 322 today that we're talking about builds on the existing system already in existence by requiring 2 additional disclosures that is relevant to patients. First, whether a physician practices in a private capacity or government capacity, or both. Second, whether a physician maintains professional liability insurance for services rendered in private practice. The bill also requires notice to patients that services rendered in a government capacity may be subject to the Government Claims Act or statutory claim process, which differ from claims involving private providers. This information matters. It matters very much, especially a patient should be able to know whether they are receiving care from a physician in a private or government capacity, or even both. A patient should also be able to know whether a professional liability coverage exists for services rendered in a private practice. These are basic facts that may affect a patient's understanding of healthcare relationship, the protection available, the process that may apply if the concerns arise. Let me give you an example. A mother is looking for a doctor for their child. They have access. Through Transparency, Public Health provides a website through HPLO for that mother to look for a doctor for their child. The information should be there to allow that mother a choice for her family. And whether she chooses a doctor who doesn't have medical malpractice insurance or a doctor that does have medical practice insurance. And whether the doctor works both for public and private, or just for private, or just for government. It's very simple. It brings transparency to the forefront, and it allows our people of Guam the same access as those in the mainland that have that ability to look up doctors in their state and choose based on information that is provided. I also want to address the concern that this bill will create, that was mentioned, that the bill will create a major new administrative burden. That is absolutely not true, because there is already a website up, and it's just a matter of including 2 additional information. During the recent Department of Public Health oversight hearing, which Brianne was here, HPLO confirmed several important facts that should guide our review of this measure. HPO confirmed that it already oversees the website for medical and professional boards. HPLO confirmed that it updates online databases after board approval. HPLO confirmed that there is already a live database where the public can search a physician's name, specific licensee, and whether the license is active or inactive. HPLO also confirmed that at this time, it has manpower to update websites with its current vendor. In fact, I even asked HPLO, how many employees do they employ to oversee websites, to oversee these boards under public health? And if I'm not mistaken, there was at least 5. This is important because Bill 322 does not require a new website. It does not create a new public disclosure program either. It does not require HPLO or the Guam Board of Medical Examiners to build an entirely new system from scratch. The physician profile system already exists. Bill 322 simply makes the system more complete and more useful for patients. HPLO explained the expanding database and making larger ITP upgrades would require additional funding. If you look at technology today, you can find there more easier access to improve any type of website. In fact, coding systems that AI technology provides. I understand and respect those concerns, though, from HPLO. But there is a difference between a major IT expansion and adding narrow practical disclosure information to existing physicians' profile framework. This bill is focused on the latter. The oversight hearing also revealed the clearest reason this legislature is necessary. When asked whether HPLO could verify whether a physician has medical malpractice insurance, HPLO stated that it is not currently able to place that information on the website. However, HPLO also stated that if someone writes to the office is able to research and provide that information. Why should our people have to make a phone call and maybe not even get their answers? That should not be the standard for patients seeking medical assistance. People are going through dire need right now when they have to deal with a family that is sick. Patients should not have to know that they must write to HPLO or write for research or request for information one person at a time. If the information can be researched and provided upon request, then it is reasonable, fair, and more transparent to include this in the public physician's profile system the Guam law already requires. HPLO also raised an understandable concern that some physician profile information, such as disciplinary actions or settlements, is sensitive and requires legal review to protect due process rights. I agree that due process is important, but the disclosures required by Bill 322 are different, much different. They are not legal conclusions. They do not require HPLO to weigh the merits of a complaint or characterize a settlement. They are basic status disclosures. Whether the physician practiced privately, in the government, or both, or whether professional liability coverage exists for private practice services. These are the kinds of disclosures that can be submitted by the physician, reviewed through the existing licensure and review process, and posted through the existing physician profile system. The existing profile system. I also wanted to address a fiscal note that estimates approximately $173,000 in reoccurring annual costs. I respectfully believe this estimate overstates what Bill 322 actually requires. Many of the responsibilities identified in the fiscal note are responsibilities the Guam Board of Medical Examiners, APO, that have already under existing law. Current law already requires the board to maintain physicians' profiles. Current law already requires public disclosure of certain medical malpractice judgments, arbitrations, award, disciplinary actions, settlements, hospital disciplinary actions, criminal convictions, and other profile information. Bill 322 only requires whether a doctor is working in the private sector, public, or whether that doctor has medical malpractice insurance or not. That's a whole lot different from what's in current law. The legislature has already determined the information regarding malpractice settlements, disciplinary actions. Patients deserve access to complete and accurate information about the providers from whom they receive care and pay a substantial amount of medical bills to be able to choose a doctor that they feel is worthy of their family and themselves. Transparency strengthens trust, supports informed consent, and allows patients to make healthcare decisions with greater confidence. Bill 322 is a reasonable and necessary transparency measure. It does not punish physicians. It does not interfere with their practice of medicine. It simply ensures that patients are not left in the dark when making important health decisions. Guam already made the policy decision that physician profile information belongs in the hands of the public. Bill 322 strengthens that policy and makes the existing system more useful, more complete, and more accurate, accountable. I look forward to receiving testimony and working with the stakeholders to improve the bill where needed, while keeping its central purpose clear. Patients, our people who become patients, deserve meaningful information before they choose a provider. Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing the additional time for me to speak on this legislation on my opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Taitague. We will now begin accepting public testimony. Ms. Sablan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, hafade to the panel. My name is Brianna Sablan, the Acting Administrator for the Health Professional Licensing Office within the Department of Public Health and Social Services. I read into record the testimony of Director Ariola. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony regarding Bill 322-38 COR, which seeks to mandate expanded disclosures on the Guam Board of Medical Examiners' public profiles regarding physicians, practice capacities, and professional liabilities insurance status. While DPHSS fully supports the intent of the legislatoran Guahan to ensure transparency, accountability, and informed decision-making for patients on Guam, the department must bring several critical operational, legal, and financial challenges to the body's attention. Section 2 of the bill explicitly states that the Health Professional Licensing Office, HPLO, of Public Health shall assist the board in maintaining these expanded, accurate, and current records. To effectively absorb this new mandate into our current scope of work, we must address serious limitations regarding our personnel, legal capacity, and website infrastructure, all of which will introduce additional cost. The HPLO is already operating under severe staffing constraints while managing licensing, administrative support, and regulatory compliance for multiple health and medical boards across Guam. Bill 322-38 COR introduced a strict 30-day continuous turnaround timeline where physicians must report changes within 30 days, and the board and HPLO must review and update the public database within 30 days of receipt. Manually processing, verifying, and uploading these changes for hundreds of licensed physicians would create an immediate bottleneck. Our current staff absorb the continuous cycle of tracking renewals, policy cancellations, changes in dual private government practices, and enforcement actions without neglecting existing licensing duties. To comply with this act, HPLO would require dedicated funding to hire additional administrative personnel specifically tasked with managing compliance, investigating data discrepancies, and processing ongoing database updates. The bill places a heavy administrative and legal burden on the regulatory body to verify the accuracy of the reported liability coverage. If a physician reports that their medical practice insurance is active, but it subsequently lapses without HPLO's immediate knowledge, the government web portal may inadvertently display inaccurate information to the public. This exposes the department to potentially liability and public trust issues. Furthermore, Section 2 requires the GBME to adopt rules for investigating violations, handling due process, and issuing administrative fines within the 180 days. The HPLO does not currently possess internal legal counsel dedicated to navigating these complex regulatory enforcement procedures. Developing these rules, providing formal written notices, violations, and coordinating fair hearings will require a substantial increase in legal resources representing an unfunded mandate that our existing budget cannot support. The current GBME and HPLO website infrastructures were built to handle basic static licensing verification data. They are entirely unequipped to manage dynamic, multifaceted profiles required by the Bill 322-38. To fulfill the potential law our web portals must be systematically overhauled to capture and display detailed separate classifications for private practice, exclusive government of Guam employment, or dual capacity practices, live tracking of active professional liability insurance status, custom statutory disclosures notifying patients that certain services may fall under the restrictive processes of the Government of Guam Claims Act, modifying our current systems and to accommodate these complex variables while ensuring strict data security and building automated tools to accept direct submissions from physicians requires specialized IT infrastructure. Our current website capacity cannot simply be patched to meet these mandates. In summary, expanding our scope of work to accommodate Bill 32-38 will require a dedicated fiscal appropriation. The additional costs will directly stem from contractual services for the web developers to redesign the database architecture, build secure physician profiles, and update their user interfaces. Salary and benefits for new compliance program coordinators and administrative staff within HPLO to manage the 30-day processing cycle. Funding to support the promulgation of rules, processing of administrative fines, and representation during due process appeals. Public Health commends the sponsors of this bill for championing patient rights and informed consent. However, without a corresponding appropriation to fund the necessary staff, technical infrastructure, and legal protection, the department can't successfully execute this mandate. We look forward to working collaboratively with the committee to secure the funding mechanisms required to turn the intent of this legislation into operational reality. And as Senator Taitague mentioned on the fiscal note, it is broken down with the IT maintenance and hosting for the website at $25,000, enforcement and investigations for personnel and operations at $20,000, and then future personnel of two program coordinators, one, and their FTE cost at $82,744. Personnel benefits for the program coordinator is $46,110, and that recurring cost would be $173,854. Again, thank you for your time and your continued leadership on this critical issue. Cesios Masi for your leadership and consideration. Therese Ariola. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Sablon. We do have individuals on Zoom that would like to testify virtually. We will begin with Dr. Hoa Nguyen. Dr. Nguyen? We're having audio issues. We cannot hear you. AV?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay, I kind of unmute myself. Hi, this is Dr. Nguyen. I'm sorry I cannot come in person, but I'm in the China of my family, so I need to testify that, for this bill. And I read the bill, have some time with the bill, kind of moved several days, and we have a time to read the bill. And as much as I read the bill from top to bottom, I really do not understand the intention of how this bill going to promote informed patient decision making. It's really, this is where, as a senator, whoever wrote this bill should really need to sit down and discuss with physicians and the medical community to see whatever you write will improve the quality of care in Guam or not. You know, but if you write things like this, and it's really pull out the mistrust and build that disparity and mistrust within the public and the physician, either public or private, and it kind of worn down the healthcare system of Guam and make it worse. You know, you're correct. You know, the Guam Medical Board standard is to keep track and post on the licensure of all the physician. If they have any disciplinary action or not, they have to report that. So the public will know if the physician have a case or him to report to the National Data Practitioner Bank. So that way the public will know if the license are current or any action taken against the physician for any incidents. Yes, that is very important for the patient to make decision if obtaining the care from that physician or not. And we have no problem with that. Okay. Now, as the bill saying, and the state in the bill that they know that there's a big disparity within the physician who work for the public, for the GMH for public health, and the physician work in the private. The bill state there's a big disparity, and we all fight for that. We say we need to have everyone, public or private, in the same level. The problem is that the government of Guam Claim Act doesn't put the physician in the private and the public in the same level field. The physicians that work for Guam are fully protected, and to us, they are not accountable for what they do. They're not. Many hearing already keep saying that GMH have problem accountability. GMH have problem reporting physician if they make a mistake or not, because they are under the Government Protection Claim Act. You know that. By raising this bill, 322, you make the disparity much worse. And you're going to punish the private entity, which are the main healthcare system of Guam. Guam by itself, with their system, the healthcare system cannot survive without the private entity. It proved that many times. It proved that during COVID time, and it proved it many times in the future. But this bill will make it worse, and the private entity will scale down quite a bit and will have really impact access care to Guam. And this the main force. I try to think what's this private and public practice we have to disclose. Personally, for me, if you work for Guam under a contract, you need to stay with Guam under contract. If you have a private practice, you cannot have a public contract to work for Guam. You're one person. You cannot do both. So to me, that's a handful of physicians to do that. They should not, because as you double dip the system, you won't serve the system any good. But the big part that I can see, this bill is strict for the malpractice lawyer. The Government Protection Act really limit the cap for any kind of lawsuit against physician for the government side up to about 300,000. 300,000, that's all you can get. But for private, you have no cap. That's millions that you can go after. So basically, this bill for you to declare if you work for public or private, is for the malpractice insurance lawyer to go after you if you really know you're a private entity only and you not work for the government. You're going to create a huge disparity, because now you're going to put the private side as a target to be sued for everything you do. And that's as plain I can see it. The word special interest is coined by the legislature, the senator. This is where the special interest group are driven to push this bill so you can have a bigger payday on any incidents that happen in the future. Plain simple. That's why public and private, the lawyer needs to know. I encountered quite a few cases in my time that the government physician make a big mistake. And I don't encourage my patient to seek any damage or liability or any lawsuit. But I call every lawyer I know, and none of them want to pick up because it's not worth their time. And sad to say, it does happen. It's not, that's what they say. It's not worth their time. It's only 300,000. So you want to disclose public and private and where you want to work? I don't understand that. That shouldn't make any difference in the patient decision of who they get care for. They get care for a physician that be referred by their family because I work out how good the physician is. I don't think they care if the physician work for Guam or the private. They don't care. I never, in 30-year practice, that have one single patient that asked me, Doc, are you work for the private or you work for GMH or what? Never. Not even single one person that asked that question. So I'm not sure why we have to declare do we work for public, private, do we have a contract with public or not? You know, it don't make any sense for a patient to choose because of that. The second part is malpractice insurance. My goodness, guys, be informed. As senator, you're responsible to be informed. You cannot make the decision by whatever you feel as a private person or what you feel because you hear something. Federally, there's absolutely zero mandate for any private physician or any physician at all federally to report that you have malpractice insurance federally. There's no mandate at all. I searched the system, maybe 20 states that have some type of mandate malpractice insurance, are very limited because they want the basic coverage. Not all the state, maybe about 20, 23 or something like that, the last time I searched. Most of the physicians in the state are required to have malpractice insurance if they have privilege in any hospital. A lot of private hospitals, when you apply for privilege, they require by the hospital, not the state, for you to carry some malpractice insurance because you have privilege in the hospital. But it doesn't mean that it's mandatory for any state to require physician to have malpractice insurance. And it's not mandatory for any state or own the state or minority state, majority state, to have physician put on the website publicly to say, I have malpractice insurance. Again, 30 plus years of practice, and some of you guys are my patient. I never hear anyone ask to see, Doc, do you have malpractice insurance? Patients don't care. I don't know who wrote this bill. You ever ask a patient that you ever walk in and ask the clinic, do you have malpractice insurance? My goodness, if you ask, then I will tell you personally. But I'm not going to put on a website that, oh, I have malpractice insurance. You know, that's a big bullseye on their head for the medical malpractice lawyer to look for in front of your head, the back of your head. It's not because accountability, it's not because you want to hide something, it's not because transparent, it's not patient don't care. That's not what they're looking for you for. You know, patient refer to us, we have 46 to 50,000 patients for us, and not a single patient asked that question. They go to you because they trust you as a family, and you are part of their family. I have 4 or 5 generations under my care because you're part of the family. And none of them ever asked you that. So Senator Taitague, I don't know who you're asking that question for, but I'm going to name you directly because to me, you will drive this, the single-handed drive this healthcare system of Guam so much backward. And you will single-handed impact the access to care. I'm telling you, you will single-handed access to care. I will hand over about 20,000 of my patients with your name on it to let them know to come and seek you and ask why you do this. Any senator that vote for this thing would be full responsible for impact access to care. I really, really love my practice. I love every one of my patients. I'm 100% for accountability for what we do. But this bill of yours and whoever sponsored it with you do not understand the healthcare system and understand how we do. It's very discriminatory for you to single-handed require one single profession in Guam to do a report. Yes, we can follow most of the state, and 100%, I have to say, you have to make sure your license up to date. You make sure the board will report you have the action or not, so that way patient will make consent. But I don't think patient give a care to choose you as a primary physician if you have malpractice insurance or not, or if you practice for Guam or you practice for your private clinic. So I'm asking everybody, we all love to improve healthcare of Guam, but before you write anything, talk to the medical community. We'd be love to sit down and work with you to try to improve healthcare here. You know, we love to recruit physicians to come to Guam. Okay, we love the accountability. You make a mistake, I want you to hold responsible for it. But again, you got sometimes look at the mistake to see is that the physician mistake. Healthcare and your health, very complicated. Both the physician and the patient, not just a physician. I always tell my patient is 50-50. If you don't do what you do, you're gonna get sick. But do not blame me because you got sick, because you didn't choose a healthy lifestyle, you don't take a medication. So it's not just the physician. So everything is very complicated in the healthcare system. But again, this bill, guys, I'm not sure what to say, but when you coin the term, you know, special interest, I tell you, this is 100% special interest strictly for malpractice insurance lawyer to target people, not for accountability, for everything. You know, I'm not going to spend time, many hours in court to defend things that that is not a real case just because the malpractice insurance know that you have malpractice insurance and you're private. Nah, it's not going to do that. You know, so again, what's the single choice? We have a 40-something, 50,000 patient. Easy. I just shut down AMC. I tell you that in public. It's not worth it. I worked all my life for this, and you are single-handed kill it, and you affect everyone in Guam with access to care, and it's not worth our time loving our patient and take care of our patient because a senator who do not understand the system try to write something very uninformed and does not know what they affect the healthcare system of Guam. Again, thank you so much for giving me some time to do it, but this is very passionate because that's what we love to do for my career. But bill like this will kind of make you not loving your career anymore because, you know, you don't have the chance to take care of your patient the way you do because of a bill like this. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hoa. I believe we have Dr. Nathaniel Berg also on the line. Dr. Berg, are you still with us? Thank you. Please unmute.
There we go. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Dr. Nguyen, for your testimony, and for Bree also. I appreciate the time everybody's taking to talk about this bill, and I think so. I have a time today that I'm supposed to actually represent three people because Dr. Shea couldn't be here, and he's asked me to read into the record the Guam Medical Association, their opinion piece. Their opinion for their membership regarding this bill, and I will do that. And also, Dr. Jolene Uggan is off island, and so Dr. Eusebio communicated that their opposition. I'm going to actually pull his thing, his WhatsApp. He is quite busy. It's really difficult sometimes for us as doctors to find time, but we try. But he said that that it's unfortunate that he and Dr. Uggan are unable to attend the meeting. However, the testimony was reviewed, especially that by the Guam Medical Association, and they're in agreement. They agree completely that the bill will not benefit patient care, will not provide any clarity to treatment. It actually simply leads to more confusion, lack of confidence in the local physicians, and this is a time when we are seeking to provide expanded care to the people of Guam so they can receive care locally, and this does not add to that endeavor. And he's confident that Dr. Uggan shares his opinion, but she's off island. So, and if you look who's here, Dr. Thomas Shea, unfortunately, he is also off island dealing with his family. Dr. Juan Nguyen, Dr. Rick Eusebio, and I, the last time we were here, we completely disagreed. You don't find this white coat that we all agree and all sign up to the same thing every time. We don't. We have varied opinions regarding certain aspects of healthcare and regulatory measures and the like, and we actually were pretty passionately disagreeing last time. Here, it's near uniform. You might be able to find somebody who's going to give an opinion that they believe it, but it's misdirected.
Dr. Berg, Dr.
Yes,
Berg,
ma'am.
are you testifying as the chair of the Guam Board of Medical Examiners?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but if you don't mind, Madam Chair, I apologize. I wish I had asked you in advance that I could read Dr. Eusebio's, and I think that Dr. Shea has asked you also, I hope. He indicated to me that he asked you that I be allowed to read the Guam Medical Association because it was rather quick that he was unable to attend. I think it was we misunderstood the timing. We thought we were starting at 8:30, and we were going to let him go first. I'll go now back to where I was. So the fundamental question regarding Bill 322-38 is rather straightforward. What's the legislative purpose of the bill? That's the question. And if you carefully review it, there really is no apparent benefit to the public. The sole beneficiary, as Dr. Nguyen has indicated, the sole beneficiary is the medical malpractice litigation bar, if you will. This bill does not advance public health. It doesn't improve care. It, in fact, the mission of the Guam Board of Medical Examiners is to protect the public. This doesn't protect the public. It actually impairs the provision of care. We have a critical physician shortage, especially regarding specialists, and this doesn't strengthen regulatory oversight. No way. The board has to do this, but it doesn't actually strengthen our oversight. It only serves the financial interests of the medical malpractice attorneys. It is indeed a special interest. In legal terminology, I'm not an attorney, but I know two terms. One is called ipsa loquitur. It speaks for itself. The purpose of the bill and the beneficiaries are incredibly evident. This doesn't require a tremendous amount of analysis. We know who benefits from it. We know the purpose of it. So the stated purpose to promote transparency and informed decision-making, that's actually not aligned, as Dr. Wah said, with practical reality. If patients sought information regarding my malpractice insurance status, they ask. They could ask it directly. Between myself, Dr. Eusebio apparently, Dr. Nguyen, Dr. Shea, you're talking about way over 100 years of providing care in Guam. Not once has anybody asked. Not once has somebody asked me, do you also work occasionally down for the government of Guam in Public Health South? Nobody, they don't care. In my professional experience in decades, that is not something that patients are using to make decision making. They're free to ask any physicians about malpractice or anything else they want, and the implication that physicians are not transparent with their patients, that we don't have open and frank discussions regarding whatever they want to ask, that's inherently insulting to our profession to say we're not transparent. There's a difference between being transparent and publicizing everything and making regulatory mandates. I think it fails to demonstrate, it demonstrates a lack of understanding of how physicians interact with their patients. Even if you are patients, we see patients all day long. Patients do not base their physician selection decisions on malpractice insurance. You personally, anybody listening to this, would be extraordinarily foolish to make your decision as to what physician you're going to see based on whether they work part-time or full-time or whatever at Guam Memorial Hospital or at Public Health. The selection is based on professional competence, clinical reputation, availability, and trust. And on Guam, where healthcare provider options are often limited, malpractice insurance status is never a factor in patient decision-making. And as I said, I think we oftentimes have single specialty. There are things that only I do. You're going to ask me if I have malpractice, that'll make your decision as to whether you're going to let me be your physician? No. That's only person who wants to know that are the malpractice attorneys. So this bill mandates public disclosure precisely of information that is not important to patients. It's just not. And they can get that information by just asking. So transparency regarding professional liability, if it was truly essential in decision making, right? If you really thought that this was critical, you would do it across all licensed professions. I can ask my attorney, do you have legal malpractice insurance? What are your coverage limits? Do you practice sometimes for the government of Guam? I can ask that. They'll tell me. But that's actually not important in how I ask an attorney. How about a social worker? Mental health counselors, clinical psychologists? Nobody does that. When I walk into the legislative hall, do I say, oh, I need to know if I slip and fall, do you have general liability insurance? What's the limit? Nobody does that. You don't, next time you go into a supermarket, say, what if I slipped and fall? I better go and ask first. No, better. The legislature should mandate that all supermarkets post it on their websites. So I know if I slip and fall there, do they have malpractice insurance, right? I think the attorneys in Guam would love that, right? Hotels, do they have malpractice insurance, general liability insurance? You could go nuts with this, but you're not. You're targeting one profession. Let me ask this of the senators. Do you want to know, I thought this was a bit crude, and I wasn't going to say it, but I am going to say it. Do you want to know if your kindergarten teacher works in the adult industry, like as a, let's call it exotic dancer? Do you want to know if your kindergartner, if your child, the teacher, when they're done, is then working in that industry? I'll leave it to your imagination in what manner. You may want to know. You can ask, but why don't you publicize that? And when I walk in the classroom, that it's right there on the chalkboard, because we have a right to privacy too. And you're saying, where do I work? Do I work sometimes at Public Health? You're putting patients in danger. Physicians in danger. Have you not heard of stalking? I think you've all heard of stalking. It's real. And I don't need to tell you where I work publicly. Right? People come out here, some are coming out here to kind of escape that. You don't want, it's very easy. You could call Guam Memorial Hospital if I had to disclose that and say where I worked and what time I worked. Somebody could ask, what time does he come on? They'll tell you. That is not something that needs to be exposed. You don't do that to social workers. You don't do it to police officers. Do they work privately when they're not on duty? You don't ask them that. You don't ask, when you do work privately, do you have liability insurance? We don't do that. This is selective application of the disclosure requirement reveals the true legislative intent. It's because the attorneys want to know, are there big bucks behind that physician? When a patient comes in and says, I want to sue, they want to know, can I get big bucks out of it? That's all they want to know. The practical enforcements, I'm telling you that they're profound. The senator is incredibly wrong in her explanation as to what we would do. You don't just say, oh, we could post it. That posting of it is not that difficult. The issue is that we would have to, we would be required to investigate and enforce compliance of well over 600 physicians. So if a physician works at Guam Memorial Hospital and stops working for 30 days, oh wait, they have to inform us. So then, can you imagine that you would have me? We don't have investigators. So you're talking about physicians like myself saying you need to track that person down and hold them accountable for not updating that they stopped working at Guam Memorial Hospital 31 days ago. Am I supposed to punish them? If somebody drops malpractice insurance because it gets too expensive and says, let me look for another one, they don't report to us that they dropped it, do I need to then hunt them down, even though they may be working remotely in the ICU and they're in Florida? I have to go for them? It's insane the amount of administrative work that this would do to no benefit except for a very few physicians, very few med mal attorneys. We would have to investigate them, locate them, all of that. It's crazy. We don't, as I said, we don't even have our own investigators, and we've asked for funding to get investigators. We need it. The complaints, I was going to say it's in the end, but I'll say it right now. The complaints about the board that you have, most of which are completely inaccurate, but the complaints that you have about us not following up on things, you're just going to make it difficult. Now, instead of working on legitimate cases, I'd be trying to track somebody down because they didn't report that they stopped working 31 days ago. So the legislature's appropriate role, this is in my opinion, is in healthcare regulation at least, is to create legislation that improves healthcare quality, protects the public or promotes public safety, supports the delivery of healthcare and improves it. That is not happening here. The Board of Medical Examiners has demonstrated that we welcome and support legislation that serves to this purpose. Look at we strongly supported the permitting of foreign medical graduates coming to Guam. That's going to create an additional burden, but it's so good for the public that we're saying we'll figure out how to do it. And the legislature said we'll give you funding for that because it is so important. This is not that. Don't waste the money doing it here. We understood that the legislation was so good, and we knew that it would be an extra burden on us, but everybody wanted to support that at least at Guam Hospital. Others wanted to expand it to the public, to the private sector in due course. But the point is, it benefits the people of Guam so clearly. This so clearly does not. So the members of the legislature, I'm asking you to say, this is as low as we can go. That you're going to start targeting physicians in order to, as Dr. Nguyen said, targeting them so that a few people can benefit. That is not what we want. What we want to say is, how can we protect the public? Certainly, by the way, you're not taking into account that Guam Hospital, the medical staff office there, and at Dr. Nguyen's office, at my office, we're the ones that keep track of that stuff. So you're adding this extra burden for us to keep track of whether one of the physicians that works for us works part-time, decides they work part-time at public health, at the request of public health. Oh, wait, we need to report that. Oh, they stopped working there. We need to report that they don't work there anymore. It's ridiculous and adds no benefit. It does not serve the public interest at all. What I would ask is that you respectfully get rid of this. There's something called, summary judgment. What I remember is there's no reason to even consider this. Right out of the gate, when people file lawsuits or whatever, and it's so obvious, they don't have a trial. This is almost like that. It never should have even gotten to this public hearing. It's so ridiculous in its real intent. Instead, I would ask that the legislature and those who are interested in the healthcare arena in particular, that you engage in meaningful dialogue with the medical community. That's the Guam Board of Medical Examiners. Ask us, what can you do to help us be more efficient? What can you do to help us in holding physicians more accountable? No one does that. We should be doing that. There are jurisdictions where the legislature and the regulatory authorities work hand in hand. Nobody goes to Dr. Nguyen, who runs arguably, certainly the biggest outpatient facility in Guam, and says, how do we help you with recruiting? What can we do? That's not to say, how do I help make you more money? How do I make it so nobody can sue you? We're not asking for that. We're just saying, maybe there are things the legislature could do that would help us in recruiting so that you'd have more specialists. So when you go to Dr. Nguyen's office, maybe you'll find an allergist. We don't have one. Maybe you'll find a pediatric endocrinologist. We don't have one. We need them. And maybe the legislature can say, let's stop these, I almost would say shenanigans of focusing on things that don't improve health care on Guam and do things that really do. So that's the end of my legislation, of my public testimony, and I am available if someone just has to call me and say, let's meet and let's really talk about what we can do jointly. I'm sure that Dr. Nguyen would join me. We sit in very different arenas. I'm sure that Dr. Eusebio would join us to say, how do we improve things and have a roundtable to look at real intent, real legislation. And what I would ask, Madam Chair, is if you don't mind, at the request of the Guam Medical Association, that I can read into the record their written testimony.
Please proceed.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, let me open it. It'll take me half a second. I will do that right now. Okay. Give me 1 second. I'll try to. It is opening, I hope. There it is. Okay, let me get it so where I can see it and read. And, okay. So, all right. This is from the Guam Medical Association, and it's a statement of the Guam Medical Association regarding Bill 322-38. Dear Honorable Senators of the 38th Guam Legislature, the Guam Medical Association represents several hundred healthcare providers, predominantly physicians practicing in Guam. We've consulted a large portion of our membership regarding Bill 322-38, and we are providing this statement to the legislature. Our position: the membership of the Guam Medical Association is uniformly opposed to Bill 322-38. No member polled expressed support of this legislation. Context: before discussing the specifics of the bill, it's important to understand the regulatory environment in which Guam physicians already operate. Guam physicians face regulatory and financial burdens that don't exist in other U.S. jurisdictions. For example, Guam requires physicians to maintain a separate controlled substance registry, CSR, registration. This has to do with regulated medications. And we must pay an additional fee of $500 per physician in addition to the federal DEA registration. This requirement essentially duplicates the federal DEA registration. The CSR fee did not exist for years and suddenly was raised without consulting the medical community regarding its impact. Most other states, including Hawaii, do not impose this separate requirement. This is a background. The physicians in those jurisdictions only pay their federal DEA. The Guam CSR requirement has not demonstrated any benefit to Guam's regulatory environment, patient safety, and it simply has added an additional cost. Additionally, Guam physicians are subject to the BPT, business privilege tax, a gross receipts that applies to medical collections in ways that differ significantly from other jurisdictions. This tax cannot be passed on to patients or insurance companies. As a result, Guam physicians receive the lowest Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement rate in the entire country as this tax comes off the top. Is this something that helps improve healthcare in Guam? Guam Medical Association members do not believe so. Guam is already an expensive place to practice medicine. We face a persistent shortage of specialists. These existing regulatory and financial burdens make recruitment and retention of qualified physicians extremely challenging. Now the legislature proposes to add yet another burden. The contradiction is we note that one of the primary sponsors of the bill was instrumental in authoring legislation to bring foreign physicians to Guam and allow them to practice. That is the same legislature that is now supporting a bill that will make it harder for us to recruit physicians. These positions are in direct conflict with one another. And then he goes over the key concerns. Excessive and continuous reporting burden. The bill requires physicians to notify the board within 30 days of any change in employment status or malpractice insurance status. This includes absences for as little as 30 days. For physicians who work in multiple capacities, private practice, part-time at GMH, part-time at other facilities, this creates a constant stream of notification and updates. The reporting burden falls entirely on physicians, consuming time and resources that could be devoted to patient care. Physicians, invasion of privacy and mandatory public disclosure. Physicians will be required to publicly disclose where they work. For those employed by the government of Guam, this means disclosing specific locations where they work, a small number of facilities that can easily be identified. Many physicians have legitimate reasons for not wanting their employment information made publicly available, and this includes safety concerns. This is an unprecedented intrusion into the privacy of professional physicians practicing on Guam. And it is selective targeting, as we both mentioned. This bill targets only physicians. It doesn't apply to teachers. That's what I said also, who are not required to publicly disclose where they work part-time as bartenders, tutors, or in other capacities. Police officers are not required to disclose on public websites whether they work part-time as private security guards. Government employees are not required to make notice of their outside private employment, not publicly listed on websites. Why are physicians uniquely subject to this requirement? This selective application raises serious concerns about the legislative intent. Safety and stalking. Publicly disclosing a physician's specific workplace or places, particularly government facilities, creates a potential safety risk. Physicians, like all professionals, face stalking, both online and in person. Compiling easily accessible information about a physician's location and schedule makes stalking more feasible. The legislature should be aware that stalking is a documented problem online and in the physical world and on Guam. No consideration has been given to the safety implications of this mandatory public disclosure. No demonstrated patient benefit. Not a single member of the Guam Medical Association that was polled reported that a patient has ever asked whether they maintain medical malpractice insurance. Not one. Patients do not choose physicians based on this information. As part of the selection of a physician, no member of the legislature has, in all likelihood, ever asked a physician, do you have malpractice insurance? Do you work part-time at Guam Memorial Hospital, as a method of choosing whether or not they will seek the care of that physician. And even if they did ask that, the answer certainly would not impact their decision. The bill does nothing to improve patient decision-making or healthcare outcomes. It benefits only malpractice attorneys. The only parties who benefit from this are medical malpractice attorneys. This information mandated by this bill, the employment status and medical malpractice, is exactly what med mal attorneys want to determine whether or not to go after litigation, whether or not to make claims, to determine whether they will be covered under the government versus private liability. This bill is a thinly disguised mechanism to enrich medical malpractice attorneys. We've seen this before, by the way. It has nothing to do with patient transparency or informed consent. It's contradictory to the legislative position. Ironically, the same sponsors are among those who constantly complain about the Guam Board of Medical Examiners falling behind in its work. But this bill, sponsored by the very same legislators, proposes to add significant administrative burden. This is internally contradictory. Complain about the GBME's performance while simultaneously making it more difficult and straining their capacity. If the legislature believes the GBME is underperforming, adding more administrative requirements that does not help patients will not solve that problem. No input from the medical community. The Medical Association has never been consulted about what would genuinely help our members practice on Guam, recruit specialists, or improve healthcare or improve the healthcare environment. Instead, the legislature proposes legislation such as this that makes it harder to recruit physicians, adds to the regulatory burden without any demonstrated benefit to patients. This is backwards. The Guam Medical Association's call to the legislature: stop targeting physicians with selective regulatory requirements that do not apply to other licensed professionals. Stop proposing legislation designed to benefit private attorneys at the expense of everyone else, including physician recruitment and retention. Instead, reach out to the Guam Medical Association. We are ready to work with the legislature to identify genuine barriers to physician recruitment and retention. We are ready to work together to improve the healthcare environment and the lives of all Guamanians. That cannot work without the legislation, that begins with legislation that makes it harder for us to attract physicians. Bill 322-38 does not serve patients. It does not enhance healthcare. It does not help the legislature understand anything meaningful about the actual physician practice on Guam. It only serves the financial interests of medical malpractice attorneys. We respectfully urge the legislature to withdraw this bill and engage in genuine collaboration with the medical community. And that's from the Executive Director of the Guam Medical Association. That concludes my testimony. I will also be submitting written testimony, and I appreciate the hard work of the legislature, but I hope that we can turn a corner here and work collaboratively towards real improvement in healthcare. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dr. Berg. Please stay on the line. Dr. Ho, I hope you're still there. We will now begin with questions, and we'll start with the author, Senator Taitague.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for everybody who came to testify today. Appreciate your comments that were made, but unfortunately, well, with Dr. Nguyen particularly, to make threats that you're going to tell every patient that you have that, I put this bill out for transparency purposes is ironic, because many of them are your patients that are calling me for more transparency and accountability with our doctors. We went through the whole medical malpractice arbitration law and listened to many physicians. And you would think that this is not requiring doctors to have medical malpractice, like quite a bit of states actually require medical malpractice insurance from our doctors. This bill doesn't do that. It just tells us whether you have insurance or not. I'm pretty sure that a lot of people who are driving vehicles, and they'd like to know if motorists have insurance, because if they get hit by them, that's one thing that they're hoping the motor vehicles have is insurance. I mean, the other drivers have insurance. So this is just a transparency, and I have to ask Dr. Berg, a law that was passed recently that requires information, and yet it was in the 31st, if I'm not mistaken, as well as later on legislation that required information that's beyond, you know, whether a doctor has medical malpractice insurance or whether they work in the private or public sector. So can you tell me why the Board of Medical Examiners have yet to put that information that it was required by Public Law 31-84?
Well, I think, okay, so there are two different portions of the Health Professional Licensing Office, and I think Brianna had gone over that. Brianna Sablan, the acting director, had indicated that this is an administrative issue. I deal directly with physicians and regulatory aspects of physicians' practice. I don't maintain the website, right? So I don't know who in the legislature is responsible for maintaining the website, but I doubt individual senators play that role. It would be impossible for you to
no problem, Dr.
expect that I, as the chair, have maintained the website and post what's on the website.
Okay, so you're saying that the board does not do the website. So I'm going to go to Brianna. So Brianna, there was a public law that I mentioned earlier, 31-84, that required information, and then another public law, 31-84, and one that was 34-79, and it had yet to provide this information on the website.
Thank you, Senator, for the question. I'm only going to speak again for my tenure here in the HPLO. When I did come into the Health Professional Licensing Office, the website never existed. I did have, to kind of just hit the ground running when I came into the office. There was a lot of mandates that the HPLO had to really establish and create. During the time of COVID, I was able to kind of develop the scope to really initiate the website. That all fell through. During COVID, GSA issued a purchase order to a specific vendor. Unfortunately, that vendor's purchase order had to be canceled because there was a technical issue. Sorry, I didn't do that. No, there was a technical issue with the website provider having to have the cloud base in the U.S. versus the Philippines or somewhere in Asia. So that really was overlooked. So that purchase order had to be canceled. And you asked why those information are not here. I feel that we are doing, at least for me, providing that website is I know it's a big need for the community of Guam. And we're in a better place today than we were 10 years ago. It's a work in progress with having to create all these different tabs in the website, and right now it is searchable. You could search the physician, and so you state why hasn't it been done. Again, it requires money, it requires funding. For the HPLO itself, for the 26 budget, a little over $300,000 was awarded or was granted through special fund, which is inclusive of the 9 boards. It can be done. Something can be done, but again, it's a different field, and that is one of my strategic goals in HPLO is to be able to have the ability to do that. But at the end of the day, it does cost money, and then that will just add on a different scope for the website developers. I did have a conversation already with the website developers, and it can be done, but of course, increasing that option would cost money. But on the brighter side, I think it's important that the physician themselves put that information. So that's what I'm building. So I'm hoping to roll out a physician dashboard soon. And in that dashboard, the physician may be able to provide that information because it's a lot of work. And I have to say, you stated we have 5 staff. Yes, that 5 staff includes me. We have 10 boards with 5 staff, and every single one of my employees have more than 3 boards. So and then I have a board myself. So it becomes taxing on having to manually look at these information. It's doable, but again, it's if we get the physician to report all this information on the dashboard, then we can simply turn on that function on the website. But again, it does cost money, and I'm almost certain we'll be in a better place once we create that dashboard to be able to have the physician, okay, they have malpractice. Then if we turn on that function, then on the front end of the website, everyone on Guam may be able to see that information. So,
I have a question, though, with regards to this dashboard. Now, it's making it sound like it's a total responsibility of yourself to get that information, but like this bill particularly requires that the doctors provide you that information and that you put it on the, post it on the website on this so-called dashboard. So it's not like you're going out searching if they do have medical malpractice and whether they are public and private. Also, the information that was required almost 10 years ago for the posting of these doctors and their information, I was hearing that it was because there was pushback from the Board of Medical Examiners providing you that information, that they refused to provide it to you. So I'm curious, have you had any pushback from the board to provide you the, even though you don't have the website up, right? Because by law, public health is required to get this information by law. Now, whether you put it on the website or not, at least you have it. So in the event, like it was mentioned, someone can call up and ask, you know, does this doctor have any issues, or where is their location, their clinic, so that I, you know, if I want to go to their clinic, where are they located? Do they specialize in this field? So, do you have that information that we should have had put up 10 years ago, or?
I'll answer your first question. Okay. Is there pushback from the medical board? No. There's, at least in my tenure in the HPLO, there's been no pushback. The pushback really is on the legal counsel, because we did have a really long case that we had to, that basically was adjudicated, but we were in the process of reviewing. Again, we have to manually pull out the physician's file, review it, and take a look at all of the physician public profile requirements. And then we come up with the statutory requirement, and then there are disclosures that we need to put up there. But again, from the preliminary review, I think we reviewed a little over 100 or 200 at the time when we did have legal counsel. Many of them didn't meet the threshold of the website or the public law. So again, in our oversight hearing, I did state that it's really just for me to get guidance from the AG's office to be able to get an assigned attorney to help me on this, because we want to put the information on the website, but again, we can't, because like you stated, with the privacy and due process. So we want to protect the physician, but then we also want to do our due diligence and provide this information on the website. And I'm not talking about 322, I'm talking about the public law.
Right.
With the physician, because there's so many, the disclosures, the statutory requirement, the mandates the board to establish and maintain a searchable website, that, and then the subsection of current status of disclosures, that's what I'm referencing, requires the disclosure of the posting of the background and disciplinary histories held by the board. So all of those requirements, yes, that's what I'm referencing. We can do it, and we did do a preliminary review when we had an assigned attorney, and because we don't have one, I'm just continuously having to follow up with the AG's office.
Well, I'm surprised because, you know, for one, you're talking about one particular case, and that it seems to stop everything from HPLO to get all the information from other doctors. That shouldn't be the case, number one. You know, number two, this is by statutory law. You know, there is nothing in the law that would be discriminatory, because it went through the process and it would have stated for the record, but that's okay. I'm the oversight chair of the Attorney General's office, and I'll reach out to the Attorney General to look closely at the law so that you have some guidance too.
Thank you.
And also, hopefully, they'll assign an attorney until you guys can have one. I know that we assisted. The other question I have is the comments that were made. This is going to, the private is going to be punished. The private doctors will be punished. How is that they're going to be punished? This was to Dr. Nguyen for asking for this information.
Okay. Again, I mentioned that there's huge disparity with the public and the private. Okay. Public one, I asked many lawyers to take over a certain case for the public side, and none of them will take them. Most of the lawsuit, and you can research this, is from the public side. Very little. I remember maybe just 2 or 3 on top of my head over the last 30 years on the private side. Okay, so when you put all this information out, again, the private side will be huge risk of get lawsuit. Is that valid lawsuit or not? Is that invalid or valid? But again, you'll be punished because you spend most of your time in court rather than take care of your patient or try to defend yourself, because you know there's no limit on the malpractice care on the private side. You're talking about you can sue someone for millions. So was that worth for the private side continue to practice? No, it's not worth it. So yes, you will punish the private side for all the mistakes that the public side do, right? Again, to fix this thing, Senator, go and get rid of the Gulf Guam Protection Grant Act, and you will fix everything on this.
Dr. Nguyen, I don't understand how this, punishes anybody, but just provide the public with information. And it's the public's choice, whether they want to go with a doctor on the public or the private side. It's their choice. And we want to give them to the number one. Number two, the medical malpractice requirement, whether a doctor has medical malpractice or not, like most states, they are mandated to have medical malpractice. Guam doesn't mandate it, but this law would just basically say whether they have it or not. And when you work for the public sector, we all know that most of these doctors fall under the Claims Act. So it would explain why they don't have medical malpractice insurance, because they're protected under the Guam Claims Act. However, do you have a problem if it was mentioned earlier, if a patient asks you, do you have medical malpractice insurance or not? Do you have a problem if a patient asks you that directly?
I absolutely will 100% honest my patient I have or not they ever asked. 30-year practice, Senator, I have no one ever asked for that one.
Okay,
yes,
can I,
but let me finish my
question,
answer
Dr.
first.
Ho. That wasn't my question.
Let me finish my answer first. I haven't finished my answer. Okay, so it's very important. If the patient come in my practice and ask me, do I have malpractice? Yes. I would tell them, you say yes or no, and that's what it is. But to me, if the patient choose me or any physician to take care of themselves or their family, and the decision to choose the physician based on they have malpractice insurance or not, I tell you that's a wrong decision. Each patient choose you because of a referral from their family, or they trust you, or they hear things from you. But they don't choose you because you have malpractice insurance or not. 100%. I'm not sure where that's coming from, but that's not the decision the patient will ever make to choose a physician.
Do you have medical malpractice insurance, Dr. Ho?
If you're my patient, I would tell you you're not my patient. So no, I will not tell you.
Dr. Berg, do you have medical malpractice insurance?
I don't think, see, this is the thing. Let me ask you, do you have malpractice? Do you have insurance if I slip and fall when I come in the legislature?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
I said, if I walk into the legislature today, do you have malpractice liability insurance in case I slip and fall?
Do I have? No, I don't have any.
Yeah, well, hey, wait.
But
why can't I know that?
Automobile insurance.
I want to make the decision. I want that decision as to whether you are offering a safe environment. whether you're the senator, I want to walk into your office, do you have liability insurance in case I slip and fall because you spilled water on the floor and didn't clean it up quickly enough?
Well, I can tell you I have automobile
Well, then
insurance.
I'm not going to tell you. Until you tell me.
I also have
Until
house
you
insurance.
tell me.
Thank you, Senator
Let's make it
Taitague.
fair.
Thank you, Dr.
You
Berg.
tell
Mr. Berg,
me.
thank you, Madam Chair.
You tell me first.
If he can
You
let
tell
me
me
answer
first
that
if
question.
you have it. Why are you asking me?
Dr. Berg,
Yeah.
let's have Senator Taitague answer, and then we'll
Sorry.
proceed to the next senator.
Thank you. Dr. Berg, I have car insurance, I have homeowners insurance, so I do have some kind of insurance, and if I need insurance for it, so I'll be happy to expose
Sorry,
that.
I have car insurance and I have
Thank you.
home insurance.
Thank you.
I have car
Thank
and
you.
home insurance too.
Thank you, Dr. Berg. Senator Taitague. I'm so sorry, Senator Terlaje.
Thank you. Thank you all for your... somebody Zoom, maybe you could just put yourself on mute for now. Thank you. Yeah, it's very concerning to me, the testimony that we're getting in response to this bill. They're trying to say that, again, physicians are being singled out for disclosure of whether they have malpractice insurance or not. And they want to equate that to whether teachers have insurance. And it's really concerning because the whole point of this bill is because the doctors are protected under the Medical Malpractice Arbitration Act. No one can sue them for any harm unless they go through expensive arbitration. No one. Not like everybody else on Guam. And so the bill does not affect whether they are protected or continue to be protected by the Medical Arbitration Act, where no one can sue them unless they go through that arbitration process first. It really just says, disclose, tell the truth to the public, whether you have insurance or not. It doesn't even tell you, it doesn't even require that you have to say the amount. It doesn't require that you have to say really anything about your insurance except whether you have any or not, and whether you work in private practice or public, in a public agency. And if I could just ask you, Brianna, is that public information? Do you require this of your licensees to tell you where they are practicing?
Yes.
All right. And you are required already to put extensive amounts of information on the website, and you're saying that that's not completed yet, still pending some
That's correct.
information.
It's still in work in progress.
All right. And that some of that is because of legal, you need a lawyer? Why do you need a lawyer to just comply with? It says to put this information up, then you put this information up.
So, Senator, we've put it up. I don't know if anyone was able to see that information. We had some physicians already with a discipline. Do they have a discipline? Yes or no? Yes. And so tying that into the front end of the website to be able for the public to see what that is, we did. We had some physicians where we put that information on our website. Our legal counsel had us take it down. I think it was because of that physician having their legal counsel contacted our legal counsel. There was just a whole, we were actually trying to create what we can use internally to be able to manually put that information in our database. So again, because we don't have legal counsel, we not continued inputting that information on our website.
All right. Do you think it would, that's for claims? That was, where did you get stuck on reporting claims? Because do you need a lawyer to report a yes or no whether you have insurance or not?
No.
No, right?
No.
I wouldn't think so. You don't need a lawyer to report whether they're licensed or not, which jurisdictions, nothing, right? So there is information that can be put up there without a lawyer. I was really shocked at Public Health's, the director's testimony as to the proposed cost, it really seems excessive to me that she's saying this is what we need to do what we're pretty much already required to do by law. And it's really just to get it, the physicians have to say yes or no. They have to say private or public. That's it. And you require them to do this all the time. You require them to report changes within 30 days for other things, for changes in status in other jurisdictions. Within 30 days, you're required to report those. It's very, very similar. And I feel for you with the staff that you need, and I have no objection to that. You should have more staff generally. But to say that that's the reason why we can't get this information seems so, it's not that complex. They said it's a complex regulatory enforcement procedures. It's the exact same regulatory enforcement procedures that you have now for any parts that they are not complying with, any information that they haven't given you that is already required by law. And then the Medical Association's testimony, again, is very concerning because they're saying if somebody, they have to report within 30 days, and they're saying that's an excessive burden on them to report whether they are no longer on the staffing pattern of a public agency or no longer on a contract with that agency, that they would have to report that they're practicing in private practice only. That seems like a very small burden to me to just report that change in status. And I think that they, you know, because you have to have that information all the time anyways, because of their license, it's very, very consistent. They're talking about an invasion of privacy and mandatory to tell us where they work is an invasion of privacy. I disagree. I think you are already authorized, the board's already authorized to get all of that information, and anyone who wants to ask about it is entitled to it. Public is already put on their staffing patterns. Contracts are already supposed to be put up on websites. Insurance companies' directories already provide for where a provider is practicing, including addresses, sometimes hours. But really this safety and stalking concern, because we're going to tell them where our physician practices, or a selective targeting of physicians is a discriminatory because we're not requiring police officers. Police officers are not protected except under the Government Claims Act, like government doctors, exactly the same. But they're not protected from civil lawsuit or like the doctors are. They're not protected by a medical arbitration act that prevents anyone from suing the doctors unless they go through that expensive arbitration act. There was an editorial in the Candid that I think is really on point, and it points out how they're not required, or they're protected, and all we're asking now is that they just disclose whether they have malpractice insurance or not. And now this big objection, and it's kind of the least that we can ask when they have such a great protection that is not provided by any other state, none. So comparing us, asking this information to any other state that does not protect them from harm, protect patients from harm the way Guam, statutes seem to protect doctors from answering to that. Those are apples and oranges.
If you could wrap up, Senator.
Yes, thank you. So again, I just think there's nothing contradictory. And this thing, again, they get very personal to attack the senator who sponsored the bill, to say that, oh, she has a special interest to support malpractice attorneys. Well, there aren't very many, if any, left on Guam, especially ones that will go after doctors and have to pay the cost of the arbitration there are, I can't even think of any. And it's really, it's so, I don't know. I hope the people of Guam are not fooled by that. The law protects doctors with this special law nowhere else in the nation, and yet they can't disclose to us whether they have insurance or not. Yes or no? That's it. There's no penalty if you don't have it. You only have to say whether you have it or not, and whether you work in the government or you work in private. It is so simple, and yet the protection that they have is so great. And I think that's the very least that we can ask for. This is just a tell the truth bill, really. Sidus Masi.
Thank you, Senator Terlaje. Senator Barnett.
Sidus Masi, Madam Chair. Manana Sidus again. Ms. Sablan, thank you for your testimony. Since we're reading off a testimony, I wanted to read the testimony of Mr. Carlos Pangilinan into the record, a bit of his testimony. He writes, legislation such as Bill 322 is not novel. Throughout the country, state legislatures have and continue to enact laws to strengthen transparency through professional licensure. Following an injury late last year in the States, I was placed in a very precarious situation in which my providers were arguing over a diagnosis. An informed constituency is the key to building confidence in an already challenged healthcare system, the same way a motorist drives knowing that other drivers are subject to a universal law requiring everyone to have basic minimal automobile insurance. Patients should know, or at least have the right to know, whether the physicians they see or are referred to have some kind of coverage. This bill does work to that goal. That's from Carlos Pangilinan. David Lubofsky also submitted testimony in support of the bill. A portion of his testimony reads that the bill strengthens physician profiles by requiring reporting of practice capacity, insurance status, government liability information, and by ensuring that this information is maintained in a timely and accurate manner, reflecting the core purpose of the bill. Accountability improves healthcare. Transparency supports patient choice. National studies from Johns Hopkins, the Institute of Medicine, and state medical boards show that when patients have access to clear information about their providers, outcomes improve. Hospitals respond faster, insurers nationally intervene sooner. Patients avoid high-risk providers. Transparency reduces repeat negligence. Accountability reduces preventable harm. I take offense to the allegation that the author and the co-sponsors of this bill were somehow involved in a special interest movement. It's highly offensive because I'm supporting the bill to increase accountability and transparency for our patients here on Guam. You know, full disclosure, I'm a patient of Dr. Hoa Wen. He treats my children. We have a good relationship, but one thing I've noticed about the doctors on this island is they vehemently oppose any measure to increase transparency and accountability for the patients. In fact, it seems like the only legislation they support is tax breaks, whether that's the BPT or the tax break for the Medicaid. And as far as this testimony from the Guam Medical Association, respectfully, it's full of red herrings, deflections, and distractions. You know, this idea that we're selectively targeting physicians and we're not trying to ask if kindergarten teachers have an OnlyFans is frankly ridiculous, because kindergarten teachers cannot harm, maim, or kill their patients the way that doctors can. And as far as the allegation that this bill is introduced for malpractice attorneys, Dr. Hoa in his testimony was correct. There's only been just a couple of lawsuits because our existing medical malpractice law makes it virtually impossible for our patients to seek redress, accountability, or transparency from the physician community on Guam. And my dear people of Guam, this bill does not require doctors to take action on anything. All it requires is a disclosure of information that is required in many states. And we're just talking about a disclosure of information. The testimony says that doctors are worried about being stalked because they're going to be required to disclose where they work. That's absolutely false. The bill only requires the doctors to disclose whether they work in a public setting like the Guam Memorial Hospital or a private setting like a private clinic. And I just would like to also state that existing law provides patients and interested parties the ability to access more detailed information than this bill provides, to include addresses and telephone numbers of the offices maintained by the practitioner, office hours regularly maintained by the practitioner, affiliations with hospitals or clinics, whether a licensee provides services under a specified private or public insurance plan or health care plan. So already under existing law, the board is required to furnish this information to interested members of the public within 4 working days. So while the doctor and the Guam Medical Association are worried about the depth of information that's going to be provided, there's already statutes on the books that give patients and members of the public access to a lot more information than this bill requires. And so I find it deeply disappointing that anytime we try to make inroads with patient transparency and accountability, we are met with threats that, you know, the doctors are going to leave or the clinics are going to close. And, you know, if I had $1 for every time a doctor threatened to leave island based on a piece of legislation, you know, I probably wouldn't be here, you know. And in fact, we passed legislation, and some of these doctors who threatened to leave are still here serving our community. And for that, we are grateful, Madam Chair. But I'm just not going to apologize for trying to increase transparency and accountability for the people and the patients of Guam, with all the respect due. So do Madam Chair, for the opportunity to speak on the measure. And thank you again to the doctors for their testimony this morning.
Thank you, Senator Barnett. Senator Taitague, you may close on Bill 322.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and again, thank you for holding this public hearing. And of course, I'm very grateful for those who came to testify, because the people of Guam can hear for themselves their comments and whether they believe some of the accusations they made is, well, true to form, or if they really have something to hide for some reason I don't understand. But, Madam Chair, the last testimony that I have here, I ask that I read it into the record, because this is one testimony of a member of the Board of Medical Examiners who submitted written testimony, and probably this is the most courageous doctor on this island to do so. And again, he is a board member of the Board of Medical Examiners. It's the Guam Medical Care, LLC. And the written testimony that he provided when we first had the public hearing, but it was canceled due to your illness, and then from that time, that week and a half, you know, he was getting pressured by doctors to retract his testimony. But for the courageous doctor he is, he said no. June 2026, written testimony in support of Bill 322-38. My name is Dr. Jeffrey P. Gallo. I'm a board-certified physician and a fellow in family medicine. Although I serve as a member of the Board of Medical Examiners, I am submitting this written testimony solely in my private capacity as a participating physician in family medicine. I have provided care to the people of Guam for the past 28 years. I'm writing in strong support of Bill 322-38. This legislation promotes greater transparency for patients. When patients look up physician's profile on the Guam Board of Medical Examiners website under the Physician's Profile section, they will now be able to clearly see whether that physician practices in the private capacity under government employment or both, or whether they maintain professional liability insurance or are covered under the Government of Guam Claims Act. This information allows patients to make truly informed decisions about their health care and provides them with important professional assurance regarding liability protection. For these reasons, I respectfully urge the Guam legislature to pass Bill 322-38. Greater transparency builds public trust and strengthens our healthcare system. thank you for the opportunity to submit this testimony. I have to say, Madam Chair, in my closing, I have been bullied by doctors, especially when it came to the Medical Malpractice Arbitration Act and tried to repeal that and find a consensus. And today, it sounds like I'm still getting bullied because they're saying I have a special interest. Well, yes, I do, and that special interest is the people of Guam. And I want them to be able to make their decision on what is best for themselves and their family when it comes to health care. You know, I've even lost, Madam Chair. Well, I received a Dear John letter from a doctor when I was going through the medical malpractice bill when the doctors did not agree, that they sent me a Dear John letter and refused to continue my care while I was dealing with a major, major illness. But that's not going to stop me. People of Guam put me in this position to fight for them. Fight for their rights and fight to be transparent and accountable. And whether it costs me to lose my doctor because of it, because we have doctors here on this island who continue to not only bully other doctors who want to come forward, but patients, trying to force them to do what they want. What are they hiding? It makes you wonder. A simple bill like this, just like my colleagues, I'd like to thank the co-sponsors of this bill, Senator Barnett, Senator Therese Terlaje, who made a lot of sense, and of course, Senator Perez, for their support on this legislation. Madam Chair, I would like to work with your committee to ensure that not only this bill gets through, but the law that was already passed 10 years ago to provide this information on the website of Department of Public Health and Services, which provides a whole lot more information than just whether you work in the private or the public sector and whether you have insurance or not. This is a disservice to our people. And I'm looking forward to following through with this on public health too as well, and what I can do to assist them to get this information through. And I don't think it's going to cost $170,000 to do something like this. Even AI is free. So other than that, Madam Chair, again, I thank you for hearing this public hearing and looking forward to trying to move this through the process to have its time on the session floor. And I thank all those who testified and those who provided written testimony, and looking forward to any additional testimony that may come up. I know that Candid just posted something on Candid News and asked the people to read that testimony from them. It's very clear and precise that the people do come first. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Taitague. And of course, we will work with the Department of Public Health, because it is concerning that the Patient Protection Through Information Act, which was spearheaded by Senator Tina Rose Muña-Barnes several years ago, more than a decade ago, I want to say, and to hear that it is not fully implemented, to hear that disciplined doctors are not posted onto the website, that is concerning, because that was supposed to be a tool for patients and the people of Guam to be able to determine whether or not their physicians have ever been disciplined. So hopefully we can get that turned on. Whoever this website vendor is that you have at Public Health. So again, thank you to everybody that has come to testify on this bill, as well as the previous bill introduced by the ranking member. This concludes today's public hearing by the Committee on Healthcare and Veterans Affairs. The time is now 11:35. Be safe, everybody.